Hey there guys, it's Nemo here again. Just want to say thanks for tuning in. Enjoy these new Tinder stories we have for you today. Now, as always, please smash that like button and subscribe if you're new. Now, enjoy the stories.
I still remember the exact moment my stomach dropped, not in a dramatic movie way, but in that quiet sinking way where your body reacts before your brain does. It started like any other boring swipe night. Laying on my bed, phone cracked, charger barely working, just scrolling because I had nothing better to do and everyone else was busy. I wasn't even taking it seriously. I almost didn't swipe right. Her profile felt normal in a way that made it stand out. No try-hard captions, no weird vibes, just photos that looked like they were taken by someone who didn't care about looking perfect. It felt easy. That should have been my first clue. We matched fast. Way too fast. Like I barely had time to lock my phone before the notification hit. I didn't think much of it because that happens sometimes. Still, something about how smooth everything felt stuck with me. The messages were short and casual, like someone who didn't need to impress me. I never felt like I was leading the convo. It was like she already knew where it was going. After maybe 20 minutes, we agreed to meet that same night. No big planning, just coffee at a place near the old strip mall by the highway. The kind of place that stays open late and smells like burnt beans and cleaning spray. I told myself it was spontaneous, but really just didn't want to overthink it. I threw on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and headed out. The drive felt longer than usual even though it wasn't far. The streets were weirdly empty, like everyone had decided to stay home all at once. I kept checking my phone at red lights, half expecting the day to cancel. Nothing. No messages, just silence. When I got there, she was already inside. I knew it was her immediately, even though her pictures were low effort. She looked exactly the same, which almost never happens. Same hair, same tired eyes, same posture like she didn't fully relax around people. She didn't smile when she saw me, but she didn't look surprised either. More like she was checking something off in her head. We sat down. The place was almost empty, just a couple in the corner and a guy on a laptop who looked like he had been there all day. The lights buzzed softly overhead. Everything felt normal, which somehow made me more on edge. I kept waiting for something awkward or uncomfortable to happen, but it didn't. The time moved fast in a blurry way. We talked about random stuff, but none of it stuck with me later. It was like my brain refused to keep the details. About halfway through, she leaned back and asked to see my phone. Not in a jealous way, more casual, like she was curious. She said she liked to see what people kept on their screens like it told you who they really were. I hesitated. Not because I was hiding anything, but because the request felt out of place. Still, I didn't want to be weird about it. I handed it over. The moment my phone left my hand, it buzzed. She didn't touch the screen. I watched it light up on its own. Tinder opened without her doing anything. No swipe, no tap. Just straight to the app. My heart started racing, but I couldn't look away. The screen froze for a second, then loaded a message thread with her name at the top. There was a new message sitting there, one I hadn't typed, one I hadn't seen before. It was already sent. I'd know that because of the timestamp and the little check under it. My chest felt tight as I tried to understand what I was seeing. The message wasn't long. It was simple and clean. It confirmed the date was successful. Not good. Not fun. Successful. My phone buzzed again like it was proud of itself. She stared at the screen longer than she needed to. Her face didn't change. No confusion. No shock. Just quiet focus. She handed the phone back to me like nothing happened. No comment. No reaction. I tried to laugh it off, but my mouth felt dry and my voice didn't come out right. I unlocked my phone again, thinking maybe it was some glitch. The message was still there. When I refreshed the app, it didn't disappear. It slid higher in the chat like it had always belonged there. I didn't stay much longer after that. Not because she told me to leave or anything like that. I just felt this pressure building in my head like I had overstayed without realizing it. We walked out separately. I watched her get into a car I hadn't noticed before. Dark, clean, no dents. It pulled away before I could even process the license plate. The drive home felt wrong. Every street looked unfamiliar, even the ones I knew by heart. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket, but I refused to check it until I was back in my room. When I finally sat on my bed and opened Tinder again, the message thread was gone. Not deleted. Gone like it never existed. Her profile didn't show up in my matches. I searched her name. Nothing. My phone buzzed again. Not a notification this time. Just a vibration. When I unlocked it, Tinder was already open. A new message sat there. No sender photo. No name. Just a blank icon. The message was short. It said the follow-up would happen soon. I deleted the app after that. Fully uninstalled it. Restarted my phone. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Over the next few days, small things started happening. My phone would unlock itself while sitting on my desk. Apps I'd never used would open and close. My battery drained faster than normal. Once, I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of a notification, only to find my phone screen lit with nothing on it. Just brightness, like it was watching the room. I tried to tell a friend about it, but the words sounded dumb out loud. Even I didn't believe myself. So I stopped talking about it. I stopped checking dating apps. I stopped meeting new people. I kept my phone face down at night. A week later, I was walking past the same coffee place after school, not planning to go in. I just wanted to see if it still felt real. The lights were on. Same buzzing sound. Same guy on the laptop. The table we sat at was empty. I stood there too long staring until my phone buzzed again. I didn't need to look to know what it was, but I did anyway. Tinder was back on my phone. The app opened straight to a screen I had never seen before. No swipes. No profiles. Just a simple status page. It showed my name, my picture, and a line underneath that said successful date confirmed. Phase 1 complete. My hands felt numb. I closed the app. It reopened. I powered off my phone. It turned back on. The screen glitched for a second, then showed the same page. I haven't gone back to that coffee place. I don't keep my phone near me anymore. Sometimes it still buzzes, even when it's not there. Sometimes I wake up and feel like I already did something important without remembering it. Last night, when I checked my phone after hours of ignoring it, Tinder wasn't open. My calendar was. There was an event scheduled for tonight. It was already marked as successful. The first thing that hit me wasn't fear. It was the weird sense that I had already messed up before anything even happened. Like when you step onto a bus and instantly know you're going the wrong direction but still sit down anyway. That was the night. I remember staring at my reflection in the window of the place we agreed to meet and thinking I looked exactly the same as always, which should have been comforting but somehow wasn't. My phone felt heavier than usual in my hand. Tinder had been open minutes earlier. I thought I closed it, but the screen was warm like it had other plans. The place was a shared workspace cafe thing, the kind with concrete floors and fake plants, and those long tables where nobody actually talks to each other. It was late enough that the daytime crowd was gone, but early enough that the lights were still bright. I chose it because it felt public without being loud. I didn't want a bar. I didn't want music. I wanted somewhere boring so nothing unexpected could happen. We had matched 2 days earlier. His profile was clean and simple. No jokes, no red flags, just pictures that looked recent in captions that sounded like a real person wrote them without trying too hard. We talked a bit. Nothing deep, nothing flirty. It was the kind of conversation that made you think this would either go nowhere or turn into a normal hangout. I didn't feel excited. I felt neutral. That felt safe. He showed up right on time. Not early, not late. That detail stuck with me. He walked in smiling and did a quick look at me like he was checking alignment. His expression landed somewhere between pleased and relieved. He made a comment about how I matched my pictures, but that mattered more than anything else. I brushed it off. People say weird things when they're nervous. We grabbed seats near the back. He didn't order anything, which I noticed but didn't question. He brought a backpack and set it down carefully, like there was something fragile inside. I tried to focus on normal stuff. The hum of the lights. The clicking of keyboards. The smell of burnt coffee. Everything was fine until he pulled out his laptop. He didn't open it right away. He placed it on the table and ran his fingers over the lid like he was grounding himself. We finally opened it. He didn't angle the screen toward me or away from me. Just flat between us. The desktop loaded fast. No wallpaper. No clutter. Just a few folders. One of them sat dead center. Backup options. It was named in a way that made my brain pause. Not photos. Not work. Not personal. Backup options. I tried not to stare, but my eyes kept going back to it. He noticed. I know he did. He watched my reaction more than he watched the screen. I asked what he did for work earlier, and he had given me a vague answer about systems and planning. Now that folder made that answer feel heavier. He clicked around a bit, opening other folders first. Spreadsheets, timelines, things that looked professional enough, but empty enough to be useless. It felt like a performance. Eventually, without any warning, he opened backup options. Inside were more folders, a lot of them, all labeled with dates and locations. None of them matched today. None of them matched each other. I couldn't see what was inside because he didn't open any of them, but the way they were organized made my stomach twist. This wasn't random storage. This was sorted. He closed the laptop quickly after that, like he had shown me enough. He smiled again, same smile as before. Not nervous. Not awkward. Controlled. I tried to steer things back to normal. Talked about school, about the area, about how weird Tinder has been lately. He listened, but didn't add much. It felt like he was waiting. Not for me to finish talking, but for something else. Like the conversation was background noise to whatever he was really focused on. Then my phone buzzed on the table. I hadn't gotten a notification. No sound. No vibration I recognized. Just a single sharp buzz like a warning. I looked down and saw Tinder open by itself. Not the home screen. Not messages. My profile. It was updating. I know that sounds dumb, but that's the only way to describe it. My pictures were rearranging themselves. My bio text flickered like it was being edited live. I didn't touch anything. My hands were flat on the table. Across from me, he watched my face instead of the phone. The bio stopped changing. A new line appeared at the bottom. It wasn't something I wrote. It mentioned compatibility confirmed and primary match verified. Those words didn't belong there. They didn't even sound like Tinder language. I closed the app. My phone heated up instantly. The screen went dark, then lit back up to the same page. I tried again. Same thing. He leaned back in his chair, finally relaxed, like something had clicked into place. I stood up without really deciding to. My legs moved before my head caught up. I said I needed the bathroom, grabbed my phone, and walked fast toward the back hallway. The mirror in the bathroom made me look pale and stretch, like my face didn't fit right. I locked myself in a stall and tried to calm down. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Tinder. It was a file notification. Backup options had synced to my device. I didn't remember accepting anything. There was a new folder on my phone with the same name. I opened it before I could stop myself. Inside were subfolders. One of them had my name, not my username, my actual name. Inside that were photos. Some were from my profile, some weren't. Pictures of me walking, sitting, waiting, angles I didn't recognize. Lighting that didn't match anywhere I had been recently. The timestamps went back months. Some of the locations made no sense. Places I had never told anyone about. My hands started shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. I deleted the folder. It reappeared. I powered the phone off. It turned back on by itself. I flushed the toilet and left the stall, trying to look normal. When I walked back into the main area, he was packing his bag. Not rushed. Not stressed, like the meeting had ended naturally. I didn't sit back down. I walked past him and straight out the door. The night air felt wrong. Too still. My phone buzzed again as soon as I stepped outside. I didn't check it. I walked. I kept walking until my legs hurt. I took streets I didn't recognize just to feel like I was choosing something. When I finally got back to where I live, I locked the door and slid down against it. My phone was quiet for almost an hour. I started to believe maybe leaving had broken whatever process he was talking about. Then the notification came. Tinder matched me with someone new. The profile picture was blank. The bio was empty. The only visible detail was a small line under the name. Backup option selected. The date time was already filled in. The night already felt off before anything actually happened, like my brain was buffering and the world loaded a second too slow. I remember standing on the sidewalk checking my phone reflection in the black screen and thinking how dumb it was that a single app had so much control over my mood. One swipe, one match, one meetup, and suddenly my whole evening had a direction. I didn't even feel excited. It was more like I was on autopilot, moving forward because that's what I had already decided earlier in the day. We matched that afternoon. Nothing special about her profile at first glance. Blurry photos, bad lighting, a bio that barely said anything. Usually I skip those. This time I didn't. I couldn't tell you why. Something about it felt unfinished, like the profile wasn't done loading yet. We talked for a bit. The messages were normal but oddly timed, like replies came too fast or too slow with no pattern. Still, nothing bad enough to cancel over. We met at a late-night food place near the edge of town, the kind that never fully closes but never feels open either. Bright lights, sticky floors, menus that haven't changed in years. I picked it because it felt neutral. No pressure, no mood, just food and noise. I got there early and sat in a booth where I could see the door. My phone was on the table, screen down, but I could feel it buzzing even when it wasn't. She arrived a few minutes after me. She looked close enough to her pictures that I didn't question it. Same hair, same build, same face shape, but there was something sharper about her in person. Like she was more awake than everyone else in the room. She scanned the place before sitting down, not in a paranoid way, more like she was checking coverage. Things started normal, awkward but fine, talking about random stuff that didn't matter. School, jobs, places we grew up. I noticed she never asked follow-up questions. She let me talk, but it felt like she was collecting info, not connecting. Every time my phone lit up from a random notification, her eyes flicked to it instantly. Halfway through, I felt my phone vibrate hard against the table. Not a text, not a call. The kind of buzz you only get from apps updating. I flipped it over without thinking. She had unmatched me. My profile picture disappeared from the chat thread in real time. The messages turned gray and then vanished. Tinder refreshed itself like it was clearing a cache. I stared at the screen, confused, trying to process how that could even happen while sitting across from the person. It felt like being erased while still breathing. I looked up at her, expecting confusion or maybe an apology. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, lowering her head like she was stepping out of frame. Her posture changed. Her face relaxed. It was like she had been holding something back and finally didn't have to anymore. She indicated that now that the match was gone, the rest of the interaction wasn't tracked the same way. Not by the app, not by the systems that usually keep things neat. She made it sound casual, almost reassuring, like she was doing me a favor. She didn't say it like a threat. That somehow made it worse. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I tried to laugh it off, but my body didn't get the joke. My phone felt heavier again. I locked it and slid it into my pocket, but it still felt present like it was listening from there. She started talking differently after that. Not about hobbies or daily stuff. She talked about patterns. About how people behave when they think they're being observed versus when they think they aren't. She talked about how dating apps were less about meeting people and more about filtering outcomes. She kept glancing around the room, pointing out cameras I hadn't noticed before. Some were obvious. Some maybe weren't even real. The food came. I didn't touch it. Neither did she. She mentioned details about me that I hadn't shared. My class schedule. The fact that I sometimes take the long way home just to avoid traffic. The way I unlock my phone without looking. None of it was dramatic on its own. That's what made it terrifying. It was all small, accurate things. I stood up, mumbling something about needing air. My legs felt weak, like they didn't trust the floor anymore. She didn't stop me. She watched me go with a look that felt final, like she had already moved on. Outside, the air was cold and flat. No wind. No sound except the buzzing sign above the door. I pulled my phone out again. Tinder was gone. Not deleted, just not there, like it had never been installed. My app store showed nothing. My match history was empty. I walked. I didn't know where. I just needed distance. Every few steps I checked behind me, expecting to see her, but the street stayed empty. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't an app. It was a system alert. It said monitoring resumed. I stopped walking. The alert disappeared before I could tap it. My phone returned to the home screen like nothing happened. I checked my settings. Nothing unusual. I checked my storage. Normal. I checked my screen time. Tinder wasn't listed anywhere, not even as deleted. When I got back to where I lived, the lights were off even though I read turning them on earlier. My door was unlocked. I knew I had locked it. I always do. I stood there for a full minute before going in, listening for movement. Nothing. Inside, everything looked the same. No mess. No missing stuff. My phone buzzed again. A new app icon appeared on my screen. It didn't have a name, just a blank square. I tapped it. The interface was simple. Black background, white text. It showed my name, age, and a status bar labeled Honesty window. Underneath, it was a timer counting down from 30 minutes. The time matched exactly from which he had leaned forward at the table. Below that was a log. It listed moments for the night, arriving early, choosing the booth, checking reflections, noticing her eyes. Things I hadn't told anyone, things I barely admitted to myself. As the timer hit 0, the screen refreshed. Status changed to window closed. Another line appeared under the log. Interaction archived. I deleted the app. It came back. I powered off my phone. It turned itself back on. The next morning, Tinder was back like nothing happened. Same login, same matches, same layout. But something was different. Every profile I swiped through felt wrong, like they were placeholders, unfinished. I couldn't stop thinking about what she said about monitoring, what parts counted and what parts didn't. I didn't report her. There was no profile to report, no chat to screenshot, nothing to prove she ever existed. But sometimes when I'm sitting alone and my phone is face down, it buzzes once, just once. And I know without checking that whatever is watching thinks I'm being honest again.
Hey guys, really sorry to disturb you, but if you're enjoying the stories up until this point, please smash that like button. That's all I'm asking for you guys. Let's break some records this year. Now back to the stories.
I knew something was wrong before my phone even buzzed, like my body picked it up before my brain could. The whole night had that stretched out feeling, where time doesn't move right, and everything feels slightly delayed. I remember thinking it was dumb to be nervous. It was just dinner. Just another Tinder meetup. I had done this enough times that it should felt routine. Instead, I felt I was stepping into something that had already started without me. We matched the night before. His profile was clean in a way that felt intentional. Not blank, not overdone, just perfectly balanced. Photos in decent lighting, a smile that looked practiced but not fake, captions that didn't try to be funny. It made him blend in, which somehow made him harder to remember even while looking at him. Our messages were fine. Nothing intense. He suggested dinner at a small family-owned place near the edge of town, the kind with booths that squeak and menus that are slightly sticky. I agreed because it felt safe and normal. I got there first. The restaurant was busy but quiet, full of low conversations and clinking plates. Warm lighting, wood panel walls. The smell of oil and spices that cling to your clothes afterward. I slid into a booth and put my phone on the table face down, telling myself not to overthink it. I had already checked my reflection twice in the bathroom mirror before sitting. I looked like myself. That should have been enough. He showed up a few minutes later. Same as his pictures. Exactly the same, actually. No awkward scan of the room, no hesitation. He spotted me instantly and walked straight over like he had been there before. When he sat down, he placed his phone screen up next to his plate and folded his hands like he was settling in for something long. The first part of dinner went smooth in a boring way. Talking about work, random stories, the usual stuff you forget the moment it's said. He listened closely, almost too closely. Not interrupting, not reacting much, just watching. Every time I reached for my drink or adjusted my jacket, his eyes followed the movement, then went back to my face like he was resetting. Our food came. I tried to relax. I told myself I was just tired. Halfway through eating, my phone buzzed. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut through the noise in the restaurant. I flipped it over without thinking. The screen lit up with a Tinder notification. That alone was weird. I had notifications on, sure, but I wasn't swiping. I was literally on a date. I expected maybe a random like or a promo message. Instead, it was a warning. The notification banner sat there longer than usual, like it wanted me to notice it. It mentioned my current match and flagged the interaction as concerning. Not unsafe. Not suspicious. Concerning. It suggested ending the meet up early and checking in with someone I trust. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might actually be sick. Before I could lock the screen, I realized he was watching it. Not glancing. Watching. His eyes weren't on my face anymore. They were locked onto my phone, calm, and focused like he already knew what it said. I turned the phone face down, my hands suddenly sweaty. My heart was racing, but I tried to keep my expression neutral. I waited for him to react. He didn't. He just took a sip of water and leaned back slightly, like he was giving me space to process something. The rest of the restaurant faded out. The chatter felt distant. My ears rang softly. I could feel my phone vibrating again under the table, muted but insistent. I didn't pick it up. I tried to ground myself by focusing on small details. The crack in the table near the edge, the grease stain on the menu, the way the overhead light flickered every few seconds. I told myself it could be a glitch. Apps mess up all the time. Tinder wasn't exactly known for being perfect. But then my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a banner notification. It was the full screen lighting up. I hadn't touched it. The screen face down, but the glow was bright enough to spill onto the table in my hands. He didn't look away. I picked up the phone slowly, my fingers feeling stiff. Tinder was open, not the home screen, not messages. A warning page I had never seen before. Plain background, simple text. It listed his name and profile picture, along with a short line stating that this user had been flagged during multiple live interactions. Live. The word sat there heavy. My chest felt tight. I scrolled without meaning to. More text loaded. It talked about behavioral patterns, prolonged eye contact, mirroring movements, delayed responses. It mentioned monitoring systems and real-time adjustments. None of it sounded like something a dating app should be doing. I glanced up at him again. He was still watching my screen. Not curious, not worried, just calm, like this was part of the plan. I felt trapped in the booth. The table pressed into my stomach. The noise of the restaurant rushed back all at once, too loud, too close. I realized I had stopped eating a while ago. My plate was untouched now, the food cooling. Another buzz. A new line appeared on the screen. User awareness detected. My hands started shaking. I locked the phone and shoved it into my bag. I told myself to stand up, to leave, to go to the bathroom at least. My body didn't move. My legs felt heavy, like they weren't getting the signal. He finally shifted then, not toward me, toward the aisle, like he was making space, like he knew I would need it soon. I stood up abruptly, the booth seat scraping loud against the floor. A couple people looked over. I didn't care. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door, my head spinning. I half expected him to follow. He didn't. Outside, the air felt cold and unreal. I leaned against the brick wall and pulled my phone out again. My hands were still shaking. Tinder was gone. Not logged out. Not crashed. Gone. The app icon wasn't on my phone anymore. Instead, there was a system notification. Monitoring paused. I stared at it, trying to understand what that even meant. The notification vanished on its own. My phone returned to the home screen like nothing had happened. I didn't go back inside. I walked until my feet hurt. I took the long way back to where I live, checking behind me every few seconds. My phone stayed quiet the entire time. When I finally got home, I locked the door and slid down against it, breathing hard. I checked my phone again. Tinder was back. Same icon. Same login. No warnings. No flags. No record of the match. Except for one thing. My match history showed him as unmatched. The timestamp said it happened during dinner. I sat there for a long time, trying to convince myself it was over, that it was just a glitch layered on top of nerves and bad timing. Then my phone buzzed one last time. A Tinder notification appeared. It thanked me for responding to a live safety prompt. It said my feedback helps improve monitoring. I didn't touch the phone. I just stared at the screen until it went dark. The worst part wasn't the question. It was how normal everything felt right before it. Like the world had lulled me into thinking this was just another night that would blur into all the others. I remember thinking how tired I was of being bored, how tired I was of swiping and pretending every match could turn into something. That's probably why I didn't cancel. I had that heavy bored feeling where anything different feels better than staying home. We matched late at night, the kind of hour where your judgment gets sloppy. Her profile wasn't flashy. Soft lighting, casual clothes, nothing that screamed fake. The bio was short and kind of vague, like she didn't care if people understood her. That usually makes me curious. We talked for a bit, nothing intense. She suggested meeting the next evening at a small art space that doubled as a cafe. They had open mic nights and cheap drinks and walls covered in stuff people left behind. I liked that place. It felt alive without being loud. I got there early, mostly because I didn't want to rush. The place smelled like paint and coffee. Dim lights, uneven floors, old couches pushed against brick walls. There were maybe 8 people scattered around, all doing their own thing. I picked a small table near the window and put my phone down, face up this time. I had nothing to hide. At least I thought I didn't. She showed up with the kind of timing that makes you wonder if she was watching from outside. She slid into the chair across from me without hesitation. She looked exactly like her pictures, but more focused. Like she was sharper in person. Her eyes kept moving, not nervously, just observant. I felt like she noticed everything. The beginning was easy, talking about random stuff. Music playing in the background. People laughing at something on the small stage. I started to relax. I told myself I was imagining things. I always do that. I overthink and get embarrassed later when nothing happens. Then she leaned forward slightly and asked about my worst fear. It wasn't flirted out or joked about. It wasn't framed like a deep conversation starter. It was asked in the same tone someone would use to ask what you wanted to drink. Casual. Neutral, like the answer was already expected. I laughed at first, because that's what you do when something hits too close. I tried to give a fake answer. Something light. Something that wouldn't matter. She didn't react. She just waited, her eyes steady on me. Not impatient. Not curious. Just waiting. The silence stretched. It felt heavier than it should have. My chest tightened in that annoying way where your body decides to betray you. I don't know why I told her the real thing. Maybe because I was tired of pretending. Maybe because she looked like she already knew. I told her. As soon as the words left my mouth, I felt exposed in a way I hadn't felt before. Like I had handed over something I couldn't take back. She nodded once, slow and deliberate, like she was confirming data. Then she picked up her phone. She opened Tinder right there at the table, not hiding it. Not angling the screen away, she went straight into our chat. My name sat at the top, my picture smiling back like nothing was wrong. She started typing. I watched my fear appear on the screen, letter by letter, exactly how I had said it. My stomach twisted. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't cute. It felt wrong. I opened my mouth to say something, but before I could, the app changed. A small banner slid down in the chat. Not a message. Not a notification like I had ever seen before. It said compatibility updated. She stopped typing. She looked at the screen. Then she nodded again. Something inside me went cold. I pulled my phone toward me and unlocked it. Tinder was already open. I didn't remember opening it. The same banner sat at the top of my screen. Compatibility updated. Underneath it, a percentage I had never seen before. It was higher than before. Way higher. My heart started racing. I scrolled through the chat. Nothing else had changed. No new messages. Just that one line sitting there like it belonged. She leaned back, satisfied. Her posture shifted like something had been completed. Like we had passed a checkpoint. The rest of the night didn't go back to normal. I tried to talk about other things, but every sentence felt fake in my mouth. She listened, but her attention drifted, like she was already past the conversation part. Every few minutes, she glanced at her phone. Every time she did, my phone buzzed a second later. Notifications started popping up. Not messages. Not likes. System-style alerts from Tinder. Subtle ones. Compatibility refining. Preference alignment in progress. Emotional markers detected. None of that made sense. Tinder wasn't supposed to do that. It barely worked half the time. But there it was, responding in real time to something I hadn't agreed to. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, needing a minute to breathe. The mirror made me look pale and stretched, like my face was slightly delayed from my movements. I splashed water on my face and pulled my phone out again. The app had changed. There was a new section under my profile. It wasn't visible before. It listed traits, not interests, not hobbies. Traits. Things like avoidance, fixation, response to isolation, tolerance thresholds. My worst fear sat right there, neatly categorized like a tag. My hands started shaking. I closed the app. It reopened. Same screen. I went back out to the table, already planning how to leave without making it obvious. She was watching me approach, her phone face down now. She looked calm, comfortable, like she was exactly where she wanted to be. She asked if I was okay. I nodded, lying badly. She didn't push. She didn't need to. The open mic ended. The room emptied out slowly. I noticed how few people were left now, how quiet it had gotten. I checked the time. Only 30 minutes had passed. It felt like hours. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Tinder. It was a calendar alert. I didn't remember setting anything. It listed tonight's date with a short title. Emotional sync completed. I stood up abruptly, chair scraping loudly against the floor. She didn't flinch. She stood too smooth and unbothered. I grabbed my jacket and bag, mumbling something about needing to go. She nodded like she expected that outcome. Outside, the air felt thick. I walked fast, not looking back. My phone buzzed again as soon as I hit the sidewalk. I didn't stop walking. I didn't even look. I just kept going until my legs burned. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. My phone buzzed again. I finally looked. Tinder was open. The compatibility percentage had increased again. Underneath it was a new line. Few response logged. I deleted the app. It came back. I powered my phone off. It turned itself back on. The next morning, everything looked normal. Tinder was back to its usual boring self. No numbered sections, no alerts, no extra traits. Her profile was gone. No match, no chat history, nothing to prove she had ever been there. I almost convinced myself it was stress, lack of sleep, imagination. Until later that day when I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. The same fear I had told her about. It hit without warning, stronger than usual, more precise, like it had been dialed in. My phone buzzed once. I didn't need to look. I already knew what it would say. The first thing that stuck with me was how rushed the night felt before it even started, like I was already behind on something I didn't remember agreeing to. I was tying my shoes and checking my phone at the same time, that jittery habit you get when you're nervous but don't want to admit it. The Tinder match notification was still sitting there from earlier unread, even though I had already opened it twice. Something about that felt wrong, like the app wanted me to keep seeing it. We matched that morning. His profile didn't stand out at all, which was probably why I swiped right. Plain pictures, boring bio, nothing that screamed trouble. The messages were a little off, though. Not creepy, just rushed, like he kept checking to see if I was still there. If I took too long to respond, he would double message with something random, then apologize for it. I figured he was just anxious. I almost canceled, but I didn't have a real reason to. We agreed to meet at a late-night arcade diner combo near the highway. Neon lights, cracked booths, machines that beep constantly, even when no one is playing them. It felt public enough to be safe, but weird enough to be interesting. I got there first and sat in a booth near the back, where the lights flickered and the air smelled like grease and old carpet. I noticed my phone battery was draining faster than usual. I brushed it off and put it on low power mode. Tinder stayed open longer than I meant it to, like it was resisting being closed. When I finally locked my phone, the screen stayed warm in my hand. He arrived 10 minutes late, breathing a little too hard like he had jogged from the parking lot. He looked exactly like his pictures, but more tense. His eyes darted around the room before landing on me, and when he sat down, he didn't relax. Not even a little. His phone was already in his hand. From the start, he kept refreshing Tinder, not subtly. Full pull-down refresh, over and over. Sometimes he would stop mid-motion and stare at the screen like he was waiting for something to change. Every few seconds, his thumb twitched like it was acting on its own. I tried to keep things normal. Talked about school, about how loud the place was, about how weird dating apps have been lately. He nodded along but didn't really listen. His attention snapped back to his phone constantly. Every time Tinder reloaded, his shoulders tightened, then dropped slightly when nothing happened. The food came and sat between us untouched. The arcade machines beeped and flashed, bathing the booth in red and blue light. I started to feel like I was sitting inside a broken screen saver. At some point, he leaned closer, lowering his voice even though no one was paying attention to us. He said something under his breath about hoping I wouldn't time out like the others. Not joking, not smiling. It sounded like a genuine concern, like he was talking about a timer only he could see. My stomach twisted. I asked what he meant, trying to keep my tone light. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he showed me his phone. Tinder was open on his screen, but didn't look like mine. The layout was the same, but there was an overlay on top of it. A thin bar at the top of the screen with a countdown ticking down in minutes and seconds. Underneath it was my profile picture, slightly blurred, with a status label I had never seen before. Active match window. The timer dropped another second. He refreshed the app again, more frantically now. The timer flickered but didn't reset. His breathing got faster. He muttered something about how it usually resets if things are going well. I didn't know what to say. My brain felt stuck on the fact that his Tinder looked nothing like mine. I pulled out my phone and opened the app. Everything looked normal at first. Our chat was still there. No timer. No warnings, but then my phone buzzed. A small notification appeared at the top of my screen. Match activity lag detected. My heart started racing. I looked up at him. His eyes were glued to my phone now, watching the banner like it was confirming his fears. He refreshed again. The timer dipped under 10 minutes. I felt trapped in that booth. The noise of the arcade machines felt louder, more aggressive. The lights flashed too fast. My phone buzzed again. Another alert. Engagement stability decreasing. I scrolled up, trying to find settings, anything to make it stop. The app lagged, then froze. When it unfroze, the screen had changed. There was a new section under our chat, a progress bar labeled Active Interaction. It was draining slowly from right to left. Every time it dropped a little, his timer dropped too. He started fidgeting, tapping the table, running his hand through his hair. He said something about how the others had all timed out right around this point. How everything had been fine until it wasn't. How the app didn't like hesitation. I stood up suddenly, the booth seat squealing loud against the floor. People glanced over, annoyed. I didn't care. I grabbed my bag and told him I needed to leave. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone. As soon as I stood, both our phones buzzed at the same time. His timer froze. My phone displayed a full screen alert. User attempting early exit. The word sat there for a second, then another line appeared underneath. Match stability critical. He looked up at me, panic all over his face now. Not anger. Not control. Fear. Like he wasn't the one in charge of this either. I backed away from the table and walked fast toward the exit. My phone buzzed again with every step. Alerts stacked on top of each other. Warnings I didn't understand. I pushed through the door into the cold night air, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Outside, the neon lights buzzed overhead. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. My phone screen lit up again. Active interaction window closing. A countdown appeared. 30 seconds. I didn't know what would happen when it hit 0. I didn't want to find out. I powered my phone off. It turned back on by itself. The countdown kept going. When it hit 0, the screen went black. For a second, I thought it was over. Then the screen lit up again, showing Tinder. A new message appeared in the chat. Interaction timed out. I didn't wait to see anything else. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I got back to where I lived, locking the door behind me and sliding down against it, gasping for air. My phone buzzed one last time. Tinder was gone. The app icon missing like it had never been there. My battery percentage jumped back up like nothing had happened. The next morning, I checked the App Store. Tinder was available to download. No warnings. No updates listed. Everything looked normal. I almost re-downloaded it. Then I noticed something in my calendar. An event from last night. Active interaction window. Status marked incomplete. I didn't feel nervous getting ready, which should have been my first warning. Usually before a Tinder date, my brain runs laps, overthinking clothes, timing, whether I should cancel and pretend my phone died. That night felt blank. Calm in a way that didn't feel earned. Like I had skipped the anxiety stage and jumped straight to acceptance. I remember standing in my room tying my shoes and thinking this felt weirdly familiar, like I was repeating something I had already done once and forgotten about. We matched a few days earlier. Her profile had this casual, messy vibe that felt real. Uneven selfies, random backgrounds, nothing polished. One photo stood out though. It was her with some guy, cropped still only half his face showed. I assumed it was an ex or an old friend. I didn't think much of it. Everyone has those photos they never delete. We decided to meet at a small bowling alley that also had a bar and cheap food. Not the kind of place people try to impress each other at. Loud, bright, kind of ugly in a comforting way. I liked that. It felt safe. Too public for anything weird. I got there first and paid for a lane. The machine printed our names wrong, adding extra letters like it couldn't decide. I laughed it off and sat down, scrolling on my phone while waiting. Tinder stayed open longer than usual before closing. The screen dimmed slowly, like it was hesitating. She walked in a few minutes later, easy to spot because she moved like she already knew where she was going. She looked exactly like her pictures, but there was something unsettling about how accurate it was. Same angles, same expressions, like the photos had been rehearsals. We bowled for a bit. It was awkward but fun in a normal way. Bad throws, loud crashes, people cheering 2 lanes over. I started to relax. The night felt like it was finally behaving. I told myself I had been reading too much into things lately. Halfway through the second game, she suggested taking a photo together. Just something casual to remember the night. I didn't think anything of it. People do that all the time. She held her phone up, angled it slightly downward, and leaned in. The flash went off. She looked at the screen for a second, smiling to herself. Then she turned the phone toward me. My stomach dropped. The photo she had just taken was already there. Not in her camera roll as new. Not at the top. It was already uploaded to her Tinder profile. Same lighting, same angle, same clothes, same bowling lane behind us, except the timestamp said it was from last year. I stared at the screen trying to process it. My face in the photo looked exactly like I did right then. Same hoodie, same tired eyes, even the tiny stain near the collar that I had noticed earlier that day. There was no way this photo existed before that moment. No way. She scrolled slightly, showing me the upload date again like she was confirming it for herself. She didn't look surprised. She looked relieved. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened Tinder. Her profile loaded instantly. The photo was there. Second picture. Captioned with a casual line about bowling nights. The date sat underneath it, locked in place like it had always been there. I felt dizzy. The noise of the bowling alley suddenly felt too loud, too close. I checked the rest of her photos, my heart pounding harder with every swipe. I was in another one. Different setting. A diner booth. My shoulder barely visible at the edge of the frame. My jacket unmistakable. The timestamp on that one was even older. I hadn't been to that diner in over a year. I looked up at her. She was watching my reaction carefully, like she was checking off a mental list. Not smiling. Not worried. Just observant. I tried to laugh it off, but my throat felt tight. I scrolled further. There were more. A blurry photo of us walking somewhere at night, my reflection faint in a window behind us. Another one of us sitting on a park bench, leaves on the ground that didn't match the season outside right now. Each photo had a different date, spread out across months. None of them showed her with anyone else. All of them showed her with me. I backed away slightly, bumping into the bench behind me. The bowling ball return rattled loudly. She lowered the phone and slipped it back into her pocket like she had shown me enough. I asked how that was possible. My voice sounded far away to my own ears. She didn't answer directly. She shrugged in a way that felt practiced, like she had done this before with other people, and learned not to explain too much. My phone buzzed in my hand. A Tinder notification. Profile photo updated. I stared at my screen. My profile had changed. A new photo had been added at the top. It was the selfie we had just taken. The timestamp said last year. I felt like the floor shifted under me. I checked the details. Same location tag as the bowling alley. Same time of night. Same everything. Except the date. She watched me realize it. I could tell by the way her posture loosened, like the hardest part was over. I stood up, my legs weak, and grabbed my jacket. The game timer kept counting down behind me, cheerful and unaware. She didn't try to stop me. She didn't need to. I walked quickly toward the exit, my phone buzzing nonstop now. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Tinder alerts. Profile sensed. Memory updated. Timeline aligned. I pushed through the doors into the cold air, breathing hard. The parking lot lights hummed softly. My reflection in a car window looked wrong, like it lagged half a second behind my movement. I opened Tinder again, desperate to see if I was imagining it. Her profile was gone. Not unmatched. Gone. But my profile stayed changed. The new photos were still there. I scrolled through them slowly, my hands trembling. Photos of me with her in places I barely remembered. Someone didn't remember at all dated in the past. The comments under them were empty. No likes, no matches, just archived moments. I got in my car and sat there for a long time, trying to calm down. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Tinder. It was my photo gallery. A memory notification popped up. 1 year ago today. It showed the bowling photo. I drove home in silence, barely noticing the roads. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and leaned against it, sliding down slowly. My phone finally went quiet. The next morning, Tinder looked normal again. My profile photos were back to what they used to be. No extra images, no strange timestamps. Her profile was nowhere to be found. I almost convinced myself it was a glitch, a weird sync error, something explainable. Until I checked my cloud storage. There was a folder labeled this. Inside were hundreds of photos, all timestamped in the past, some dated in the future. I didn't expect the night to stick with me. That's the weird part. It didn't feel special when it started. It felt like one of those evenings you forget before you even get home. I remember being annoyed more than anything, annoyed that I had agreed to go out after a long day, annoyed that I had put on decent clothes just to sit somewhere awkward for an hour. Nothing felt dramatic. Nothing felt heavy. It just felt like routine, and that's what made everything after it hit so hard. We matched the day before. His profile was calm, almost boring. Decent photos, clean background, nothing that felt fake or staged. His messages were polite but short. Not dry, just efficient. I actually liked that. It felt mature, like he wasn't trying to impress me. We agreed to meet at a small bookstore cafe downtown, one of those places that smells like dust and coffee and stays quiet even when it's full. I got there early and walked around pretending to browse. The floor creaked when you moved. The lights were low and warm. It felt safe in that sleepy way. I chose a table near the back where I could see the door. My phone sat face up next to my drink. Tinder was closed. At least I thought it was. He arrived exactly on time. Not early, not late. That detail keeps replaying in my head. He spotted me instantly and walked straight over. No hesitation. No scanning the room. He sat down and smiled like everything was going according to plan. I told myself I was reading too much into it. The first half of the date was quiet but fine, talking about random stuff. Books we never finished. Places we wanted to go but probably never would. He listened carefully, nodding at the right moments, but something about it felt off. It felt like he was memorizing me instead of getting to know me. I noticed his phone more than I should have. He kept it on the table, screen facing up. Every few minutes he tapped it, unlocked it, then locked it again without doing anything. No messages, no scrolling, just checking. At one point I glanced down and saw Tinder open on his screen. Not our chat, his match list. He refreshed it, frowned slightly, then refreshed again. I tried to ignore it. My phone buzzed once, soft enough that only I noticed. I checked it out of habit. The match was gone. No message, no notification, just gone. Our chat disappeared like it had never existed. My name was still there on his phone for a second, then it vanished too. I watched it happen in real time, like someone deleting a file while you're staring at it. I looked up at him, confused, waiting for an explanation or at least an awkward reaction. He smiled. Not nervous. Not apologetic. Just satisfied. Like something had been completed successfully. His shoulders relaxed. His hands stopped fidgeting. He looked lighter. He said something quietly, something about there being no record now. Not in a threatening way. Not joking. More like a relief. My stomach turned. I didn't even know what to say. I felt suddenly exposed, like the ground had shifted under me and I was standing somewhere I hadn't agreed to be. I pulled out my phone and reopened Tinder, half hoping it was a glitch. The app loaded slowly like it was thinking. My matches appeared. He wasn't there. No chat history. No profile. Nothing. I scrolled back further, just in case. Still nothing. It felt wrong. Not just awkward wrong. deeper than that, like something important had been erased and only one of us understood what it meant. The cafe felt quieter suddenly. Too quiet. I noticed how far away the other customers felt, like they were behind glass. The smell of coffee made my stomach churn. He leaned back in his chair, clearly more relaxed now than he had been all night. He looked around the room, stretching slightly, like he was settling in. It was like the unmatching had flipped a switch. I asked why he did that. My voice sounded shaky to my own ears. He didn't answer directly. He talked around it, about how apps keep too much information, how people assume everything is logged forever. He said some things work better when they aren't tracked. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Tinder. It was a system notification. Storage optimized. I frowned and opened it. Nothing else showed. No explanation. Just that one line. I checked my gallery. Everything looked normal. I checked my messages. Normal. I checked my calendar. Something was missing. The event I had added earlier that day, the one reminding me about the date, it wasn't there anymore. Not canceled. Not marked done. Gone. My chest tightened. I looked up at him again. He was watching my face closely now, like he was reading my reaction. Not concerned. Interested. I stood up abruptly, knocking my chair back. The sound echoed louder than it should have. A few people glanced over, annoyed. I didn't care. I grabbed my bag and told him I was leaving. He didn't stop me. He didn't even look surprised. He just watched, calm and steady, like this was another expected outcome. As I walked toward the door, my phone buzzed again. Then again. Then again. Rapid, stacked vibrations like something was trying to catch up. Outside, the air felt sharp and cold. I leaned against the brick wall, breathing hard, and pulled my phone out. Tinder was gone. Not deleted. Not logged out. Gone. The icon missing completely. My App Store search showed nothing installed, like it had never been there. Another notification appeared. Session closed. I stared at it, my hands shaking. The notification vanished before I could tap it. My phone returned to the home screen like nothing had happened. I walked home faster than I should have, checking behind me constantly even though the street was empty. Every shadow felt wrong. Every sound felt too close. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and slid down against it, my heart pounding. My phone buzzed one last time. A photo appeared in my gallery. A photo of me sitting at the cafe table. Taken from across the room. Time-stamped tonight. I stared at it for a long time. Then another appeared, a slightly different angle. Then another. All from the same place. All from moments I remembered but hadn't realized were being captured. None of them showed him. I deleted the photos. They came back. The next morning, everything looked normal. Tinder was back on my phone. My matches were there. My calendar was full again. The missing event was back like nothing had happened. But when I checked the chat history, there was no trace of him. No match. No conversation. No record. Except in my gallery. The photos were still there. And they keep updating. I still don't know why that sentence stuck the way it did, but it replayed in my head long before I realized how bad the night was about to get. Sometimes a moment doesn't hit you all at once. It slips in quiet, almost boring, and only later does your brain catch up and start screaming. That night felt like that. Nothing dramatic at first, just a slow crawl of wrongness that kept tightening the longer I stayed. I had been on Tinder out of boredom more than anything. Not lonely exactly, just tired of the same nights looping over and over. My place felt too quiet, and my phone felt like the only thing that noticed. When we matched, I didn't get a rush or anything. Her profile felt oddly specific, though. Not in the photos, but in the questions she asked. Stuff about my daily routine, what time I usually get home, whether I liked quiet or noise. I assumed she was just awkward or trying to make conversation. She suggested meeting at a small late-night grocery cafe thing attached to a gas station on the edge of town. The kind of place with flickering lights and 3 tables no one ever sits at. I didn't love the idea, but it felt public enough. I figured it would be quick. I almost canceled when she asked if I lived alone. Not in a casual way. Not like making conversation. It felt targeted. I hesitated before answering. I told myself not to be paranoid. Plenty of people ask that for normal reasons. Roommates can be annoying. Schedules get complicated. Still, my thumb hovered over the screen longer than it should have. I said yes. She replied almost instantly, like she had been waiting for that exact word. After that, she pushed to meet right away. No planning. No backup spot. Just now. Something about that made my stomach twist, but I ignored it. I put on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and left. The place smelled like old coffee and gas. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting everything in that washout glow that makes time feel fake. She was already there, sitting at one of the tables, phone face down, hands folded like she was waiting for an appointment. She looked like her pictures, but sharper, more present, like the photos had been softened on purpose. We sat across from each other. The table was sticky. My shoe kept catching on something under it. I tried to keep things normal. Talked about random stuff, classes, work, nothing personal. She listened closely, nodding, but never adding much. Her eyes kept flicking to my phone whenever it lit up, even for random notifications. After a while, she leaned forward slightly and said something that made my chest tighten. She explained that Tinder only shows her men who live alone. Not as a preference she set, but as a feature, like it was just how the app worked for her. She said it casually, like she was talking about filters or distance radius. I laughed awkwardly, assuming she was joking. She didn't smile. She explained more, how the app adjusted what she saw based on response patterns, how it stopped showing people with roommates or family attached, how it prioritized men whose routines had fewer interruptions. She talked like she had learned this from the app itself, not from guessing. My phone buzzed on the table between us. I picked it up without thinking. Tinder was open, not messages, my profile. A new line sat under my bio. Live status confirmed. My stomach dropped. I hadn't added that. I hadn't even seen anything like that before. She watched my face carefully as I scrolled, her head tilted slightly like she was studying a reaction. I asked how that could be there. She shrugged and said the app figures things out eventually. She said it like clarity. Then she asked something that made my skin crawl. She asked if anyone would notice if I stopped replying. Not blocked, not unmatched. Stopped replying, like disappearing quietly, like fading out of a chat thread no one else was watching. I felt heat rush to my face. I tried to joke it off, but my voice didn't sound right. I said my friends would notice, my family, co-workers. She nodded slowly like she was filing that information away. My phone buzzed again. A Tinder alert slid across the screen. Response network detected. I didn't know what that meant. I tapped it. The app lagged, then loaded a screen I had never seen before. It showed a list. Names. Initials. Vague labels like frequent contact and secondary contact. Numbers next to each one. Response delay times. It looked like a map of my communication habits. I looked up at her. She was watching my screen again, calm and focused. She said something about how the app liked to know who would check in and how long it would take. She said gaps mattered. Silence mattered more. The noise of the place faded into the background. I could hear the hum of the fridge behind the counter, the click of a soda machine, my own heartbeat. I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket, suddenly feeling exposed. I stood up and said I needed air. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for my car and one truck idling near the pumps. The night air felt thick. Not cold, not warm, just heavy. I leaned against my car and tried to breathe. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Tinder. It was a calendar notification. Check-in window. I stared at it confused. The time matched the exact moment I had stepped outside. Underneath it was a countdown timer, 30 minutes. I went back inside, already planning how to end things politely and leave. She looked up as I approached, like she had been waiting. She didn't ask where I went. She didn't ask if I was okay. She asked if the timer had started. My heart started racing. I didn't answer. I grabbed my jacket and bag and told her I had to go. She watched me stand, her expression unreadable. She said something about how leaving early affected things, about how the app sometimes interpreted that as a failed interaction. My phone buzzed again. Check-in missed. A new alert stacked underneath. Visibility decreasing. I backed away from the table, my legs shaking. I could feel people watching, even though no one looked up. I pushed through the door and walked fast toward my car. The timer on my phone sped up. When I got inside the car and unlocked the doors, my phone buzzed nonstop. Alerts filled the screen faster than I could read them. Response lapse detected. Isolation likelihood increasing. Profile refinement in progress. I started the car and pulled out without looking back. The drive home felt unreal. Every red light felt too long. Every street felt wrong. My phone kept buzzing in the cup holder, lighting up the car interior like it was breathing. When I got back to where I live, I ran inside and locked the door, flipping every lock twice. I leaned against the wall, shaking, and finally looked at my phone. Tinder was open. My profile had changed again. Under Live Status, a new line appeared. Monitoring active. I scrolled down. My distance radius was gone. My visibility was set to limited. There was a note under it saying profile temporarily withheld pending response verification. I deleted the app. It came back. I powered my phone off. It turned itself back on. The next morning, everything looked normal. Tinder was back to its usual boring layout. My profile looked unchanged. No extra lines. No alerts. Her profile was gone. No match. No chat history. Nothing. I almost convinced myself it had been stress, late night, bad vibes, imagination filling in gaps. Then I noticed something small. My phone felt quieter. No random notifications, no check-ins. Messages took longer to arrive. When I texted a friend, the typing bubbles didn't show up anymore. When someone replied, it felt delayed, like the connection had to think about it first. That night, my phone buzzed once. A Tinder notification. Profile visibility restored. Under it, a smaller line. Live alone confirmed. I didn't open the app. I just sat there in the quiet, realizing how easy it would be for the silence to stretch longer next time. I didn't notice the first change right away, and that's the part that messes with me the most. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It slid in quietly, like a typo correcting itself. The night had started normal enough that my brain didn't feel the need to stay alert. I remember thinking this one might actually be fine, maybe even forgettable, and that thought alone makes my stomach twist now. We matched a day before. His profile felt carefully unfinished, like someone had tried not to try. A few photos, a short bio that said he liked late walks and quiet places, nothing intense. I remember thinking it was refreshing. Our messages were slow and spaced out, not clingy, not dry. He suggested meeting at a small indoor plant shop that stayed open late and had a coffee counter in the back. I liked the idea. It felt different without being risky. The shop smelled like wet soil and warm espresso. String lights hung between shelves, and there was soft music playing from somewhere I couldn't see. I got there early and wandered around pretending to look at plants I knew I wouldn't buy. My phone was in my hand, Tinder still open from earlier. His bio looked the same as it had all day. He showed up a few minutes later, easy to recognize. Same clothes as his pictures, same hair, same neutral expression. Nothing set off alarms. He smiled, we did the awkward greeting thing, and grabbed drinks from the counter. We sat at a small table tucked between tall plants that made it feel private without being isolated. Conversations started light. School, work, random stuff. I mentioned how I liked places that stayed quiet, even when they were open late. He nodded. I glanced down at my phone out of habit, not really thinking. His bio was different. Just one line. The word quiet had been added. I blinked, scrolled up and down, then refreshed. It stayed. I told myself I had misremembered. Bios change all the time. Maybe I just hadn't noticed it before. We kept talking. I mentioned how I hated crowded places, how noise made my head hurt after a while. Again, normal stuff. As I spoke, he watched me closely, like he was trying to memorize my face while I talked. I picked up my phone again, my thumb moving without thinking. Another change. Now his bio mentioned preferring calm spaces and low noise. The phrasing matched what I had just said a little too closely. Same wording. Same rhythm. My heart skipped. I laughed quietly to myself, trying to convince my brain it was coincidence. Maybe he was editing it earlier. Maybe Tinder was lagging and just now showing an update. Still, something felt off. The timing was too perfect. I tested it without really planning to. I mentioned how I usually live alone and liked having my place to stay exactly how I left it. No roommates, no surprises. As soon as the words left my mouth, my phone buzzed. I didn't even have to open the app this time. The preview showed his bio updating again. Live alone added at the end, like a bullet point. My hands started to sway. I locked my phone and slid it into my bag, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt. He didn't react. He just kept listening, nodding slowly, like this was normal. I tried to steer the conversation away from anything personal. Talked about the plants around us, the lighting, how the place felt cozy. I avoided saying anything that felt like it described me. Still, my phone buzzed twice more in my bag. I couldn't help it. I pulled it out again. His bio was longer now. It listed things. Preferences. Habits. All of them mine. Liking quiet nights. Living alone. Avoiding crowds. Even a line about liking string lights and low music. Things I had mentioned casually over the last 20 minutes. My chest felt tight. I looked up at him, searching his face for some kind of explanation. He met my eyes calmly. Not confused. Not nervous. Just focused. Like he was waiting to see if I had noticed. I asked if he was editing his profile right now. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. He shrugged in a way that didn't answer the question. He said something vague about keeping things updated. About honesty. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't just the bio. Tinder showed a small banner under his name. Profile refinement in progress. I had never seen that before. I checked my own profile. Nothing looked different. But when I scrolled, I noticed a new section at the bottom I didn't remember adding. Traits. It listed things in a neutral tone, like data points. Preference for solitude. Sensitivity to noise. Delayed response tolerance. It felt like someone had been listening longer than tonight. The shop suddenly felt too quiet. In the bathroom, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. My phone buzzed again. Tinder was open when I unlocked it, like it had been waiting. His bio was still changing. A line appeared mentioning discomfort with unpredictability. That was something I hadn't said out loud. Not tonight. Not ever to him. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. I scrolled through his photos. Nothing else had changed. Just the bio, like it was the only part that needed to adapt. I closed the app. It reopened. I washed my hands just to do something normal, then went back out to the table. He looked up as I approached, his posture relaxed. Too relaxed. I sat down and decided to stop filtering myself. I talked about something personal, something I rarely say out loud. Not my worst fear, but close. Something about hating the idea of being watched without knowing it. My phone buzzed immediately. His bio updated before I even unlocked the screen. I watched the words appear in real time, letter by letter, like someone typing them out live. It mentioned awareness of observation, sensitivity to being monitored. I felt dizzy. My fingers went numb. I shoved my phone face down on the table. He finally reacted then, not with words, just a small nod like confirmation. I stood up again, this time not bothering with an excuse. I grabbed my bag and stepped away from the table. My legs felt shaky, but I forced myself to move. My phone buzzed nonstop as I walked toward the exit. People glanced at me as I passed, annoyed or curious. The bell above the door chimed loudly when I pushed it open. Outside, the night air felt thick. I leaned against the wall, trying to slow my breathing. My phone buzzed again, harder this time. A full screen alert appeared. Adaptive match optimization complete. Under it was his profile, refreshed. The bio now read like a summary of me. Not similar. Identical. I scrolled down, my hands trembling. Under compatibility, the percentage had jumped dramatically. I deleted Tinder on the spot. The icon vanished, then reappeared. I powered my phone off. It turned itself back on. The screen lit up to Tinder already open. His bio changed one last time. A new line appeared at the bottom. Prefers to leave early when overwhelmed. I felt sick. I didn't go back inside. I walked until my feet hurt, not checking behind me, but feeling like I should. My phone stayed warm in my hand the entire time, buzzing occasionally like a pulse. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and slid down against it. I finally checked my phone again. Tinder was gone. Not deleted, gone, like it had never been installed. Everything else looked normal. Messages, apps, calendar, no alerts. I almost convinced myself it was over. Then I opened my notes app to distract myself. There was a new note at the top. It was titled Preferences. Inside was a list. Everything I had said out loud that night. I didn't feel scared at first, just weirdly calm, like my brain had already decided this night was going to be strange and didn't bother warning me. It started with that hollow, quiet feeling you get when you realize you're doing something just to feel something. I remember sitting on my bed scrolling Tinder, half bored, half annoyed at myself, thinking everyone looked the same lately. Then her profile popped up and something about it made me stop. It wasn't flashy, no filters, no perfect lighting, just regular photos, almost too regular. A few selfies, one mirror shot, one picture sitting somewhere public. The bio was short and vague, like it didn't care if people understood it. That should have been a red flag, but I swiped anyway. We matched almost instantly. Our messages were normal, but guided. That's the best word I have for it. She asked questions that felt casual but lined up too cleanly, like each one was leading somewhere specific. What time I usually went to sleep. How often I went out. Whether I liked routines. Nothing creepy on its own. Together, it felt like a checklist. She suggested meeting at a quiet lookout spot just outside town. Not a park, not a trail, just one of those pull-off areas where people sit in their cars and stare at the city lights. I hesitated, then agreed. It felt public enough. Cars passed every few minutes. Still, something about it made my chest feel tight. I got there first and parked near the edge. The city lights looked fake from up there, like a screensaver. I checked my phone out of habit. Tinder was open even though I was sure I had closed it. Her chat sat there, unread even though I had just read it. She arrived without me noticing. 1 second the lot was empty. The next her car was there, parked perfectly beside mine. She got out calmly and walked over like we had done this before. She looked exactly like her pictures. Too exactly. Same expressions, same posture. It felt rehearsed. We sat on the hood of my car, the metal still warm. The air was quiet, except for distant traffic. At first, it was fine. Normal small talk. School, work, nothing personal. She listened more than she spoke, nodding slowly, watching my face like she was tracking something behind my words. After a while, she pulled out her phone and said she wanted to show me something. Her tone didn't change, still casual. She opened Tinder and turned the screen toward me. It wasn't her profile. It was her match history. I expected a list of names and faces. What I saw made my stomach drop. The matches were organized differently. Not by date, by outcome. Each match had a small label under it. Words like faded, paused, ended early, archived, closed. There were a lot of them. She scrolled slowly, letting me see. Profile after profile. Different guys. Different faces. All with those same labels. Some had timestamps next to them. Others had notes. Short phrases like stopped replying. Left location. Became aware. Window closed. My heart started racing. I asked what I was looking at. She told me these were endings. Not matches. Endings. Then she scrolled further. There was a section at the top labeled active. My profile was there. My picture. My name. A small blinking dot next to it like a cursor waiting. She looked at me then and asked which ending I wanted ours to have. Not joking. Not smiling, like she was asking me to choose a movie. My mouth went dry. I laughed weakly, hoping she was messing with me. She didn't react. She just waited. The screen glowed between us, lighting her face from below. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Tinder was open. My chat with her was still there, but something new had appeared at the top. Ending pending. I scrolled up and down, my heart pounding. The app felt heavier, slower. Every movement lagged slightly, like it was thinking. She showed me her phone again. My profile had moved slightly, drifting toward a divider line labeled decision required. Under it was a countdown timer. 10 minutes. She explained calmly that most people didn't get this far. Most faded or panicked too early. Some stopped replying. Some left before the window closed. She said it like she was explaining game rules. I stood up abruptly, my legs shaky. The city lights swayed slightly. I told her I didn't want to play whatever this was. I said I was leaving. She nodded slowly, like she expected that response. Her thumb hovered over her screen. She said something about how that would narrow the options. My phone buzzed again. Ending probabilities updated. I looked down. Tinder had changed. A new screen replaced the chat. It showed 3 options, blurred but readable. Faded quietly. Archived incomplete. Closed manually. Each one had a percentage next to it, shifting slightly as the seconds passed. My breathing got shallow. I backed away from the car. The wind felt colder now, louder. She stayed where she was, watching me, her phone still glowing. I asked what happened if I didn't choose. She said the app would choose for me. My phone buzzed again. Automatic selection enabled. The timer dropped under 5 minutes. I turned and walked fast toward my car door, fumbling with my keys. My hands wouldn't cooperate. My phone buzzed nonstop now, vibrating like it was alive. As soon as I opened the car door, the screen on my phone changed again. Manual close available. The option glowed brighter than the others. I didn't know what it meant, but it felt final. I tapped it without thinking. The screen froze. Then everything went dark. My phone shut off completely. For a second, the whole world felt paused. No buzzing. No lights. No sound except my own breathing. Then my phone turned back on. Tinder opened automatically. A single message appeared. Ending closed. I looked up. She was gone. Her car was gone. The lot was empty like it had been when I arrived. I sat in my car for a long time, shaking, trying to convince myself I had imagined it. My phone felt normal now. Tinder looked normal. No timers. No options. No match. When I finally drove home, the roads felt unfamiliar, like I was seeing them from slightly off. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. I checked Tinder one last time. My profile was still there. But under my bio was a new line. Ending selected. I don't know what that means yet. I just know the app hasn't shown me anyone new since. The weird thing is that the night felt calm right up until it wasn't, like the danger didn't rush in but slowly leaned against the door and waited for me to notice. I remember thinking how normal everything looked, how easy it would be to forget the whole thing by the next morning. That thought alone makes my stomach twist now, because it proves how quietly this slipped past my instincts. We matched in the afternoon. His profile was simple, almost comforting. No flashy photos, no intense bio, just enough to make him seem real. Our messages were light and steady. Nothing rushed. Nothing heavy. He suggested meeting at a small late-night dessert place near campus, one of those spots with bright lights and too many menu options. I agreed without overthinking it. I got there first and sat near the window, watching cars pass. My phone was on the table, screen down. I told myself not to stare at it. I didn't want to seem distracted. When he walked in, I recognized him immediately. Same face, same clothes, same posture from his pictures. He smiled and sat across from me, placing his phone neatly beside his drink. The conversation flowed easily. Too easily. We talked about random stuff that didn't matter. Classes, work, dumb stories. He laughed at the right times, nodded when expected. But there was something slightly delayed about his reactions, like he was waiting for confirmation before responding. Every few minutes, he glanced at his phone, not to check messages, just to wake the screen and lock it again. I noticed because it kept catching my eye. The screen brightness would flare briefly, then vanish. Halfway through, I started to feel that subtle pressure in my chest that usually means I should pay attention. Nothing obvious had happened. It was just a sense of being observed too closely, like my movements were being tracked instead of shared. My phone buzzed. I flipped it over without thinking. A Tinder message. From him. My hands went cold. I looked up immediately. He was still talking mid-sentence, looking directly at me like nothing had changed. His mouth kept moving, his expression relaxed. There was no sign that he had just messaged me. I looked back down at the screen. The message wasn't playful or flirty. It wasn't something you send during a date at all. It asked whether I felt safe. My heart started racing. I checked the timestamp. It was current, sent seconds ago. I glanced up again. He was still talking in the same calm tone, asking me about my classes like nothing unusual had happened. His phone sat on the table, screen facing up dark. I didn't answer the message. I didn't know how. I locked my phone and slid closer to me, suddenly very aware of how exposed I felt sitting there. A few seconds passed. My phone buzzed again. Another Tinder message. This one mentioned that responses could be given in an app if speaking felt uncomfortable. My breathing went shallow. My ears started ringing slightly. I looked around the restaurant, suddenly noticing how few people were there. A couple near the counter. Someone scrolling on their phone at a corner table. No one paying attention to us. I unlocked my phone again, hands shaking. Tinder had changed. The chat screen looked different. There was a small icon at the top I had never seen before. Some kind of status indicator. Under it was a line saying "Live check active." I looked up at him. He was watching my face closely now, like he was waiting to see something. Not worried, not concerned, just observant. My phone buzzed again. The app prompted me to confirm my comfort level. I didn't know what to do. I tried to keep my face neutral, nodding along to whatever he was saying out loud, while my brain screamed at me to leave. The two realities felt split. What was happening on the table and what was happening on my phone didn't line up. I stood up suddenly, mumbling something about needing the bathroom. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. He paused mid-sentence, but didn't stop me. His eyes followed me until I turned the corner. In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. My phone buzzed again. The Tinder chat opened automatically. The app asked again if I felt safe. Below it were options. Yes, unsure. No. My finger hovered over the screen. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like my chest might cave in. I didn't want to choose the wrong thing. I didn't even know what the right thing was. Before I could tap anything, another message appeared. It explained that the check was initiated from his side. That made my stomach drop. I read it twice, my hands trembling. Initiated from his side. That meant he had sent the message. Not by accident. Not by glitch. On purpose. I flushed the toilet just to make noise and stepped out of the stall. I splashed water on my face, staring at my reflection. I looked pale, distant, like I was watching someone else. When I went back out, he looked up calmly. He asked if I was okay. His voice sounded normal, kind, caring even. It didn't match what was happening on my phone at all. I sat back down slowly, my body stiff. My phone buzzed again on the table. The app noted that I had returned. A new line appeared. Conversation resumed in person. My stomach churned. I picked up my phone and looked at him directly this time. His expression didn't change. He didn't look guilty. He didn't look nervous. He looked like this was part of the process. I asked him why he sent that message. My voice sounded small. He didn't answer directly. He talked about how Tinder had added new safety features. How some people felt more comfortable responding digitally. How it helped clarify things. My phone buzzed again. Response pending. I felt trapped, like the app was watching the space between us as closely as he was. I stood up again, this time not bothering with excuses. I grabbed my bag and told him I had to leave. His phone lit up instantly. Mine buzzed at the same time. The app displayed a warning. Early exit detected. Below it, another line appeared. Confirm reason. I backed away from the table, my legs shaking. He stayed seated, watching calmly, like he already knew how this would go. I turned and walked quickly toward the door, my phone buzzing nonstop in my hand. Alerts stacked faster than I could read them. Check-in incomplete. Live status unresolved. Outside, the night air felt sharp and unreal. I leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. My phone buzzed again. Final check. I didn't answer. I powered my phone off. It turned back on by itself. The screen lit up to Tinder. The chat was gone. His profile was gone. Instead, there was a notification. Safety check closed. No further action required. I stood there for a long time, shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Eventually, I walked home, checking behind me constantly, even though no one followed. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and sat on the floor. My phone was quiet for once. The next morning, Tinder looked normal again. No alerts, no safety checks, no sign of him anywhere. But when I checked my messages, there was one unread notification sitting at the top. From Tinder. It asked if I felt safe now. The night started with that dull pressure behind my eyes that usually means I should have stayed home. Not fear exactly, just the sense that something was already slightly off, and I was choosing to ignore it. I remember standing in my room tying my shoes and feeling like I was getting ready for something I'd already done before. The feeling wouldn't leave. It just sat there, quiet and patient. We matched earlier that day. Her profile looked normal enough. Not overly polished, not empty either. A couple photos, all recent looking, all casual. Her bio was short and kind of vague, which I usually like. It didn't try to explain her. Our messages were fine. Not exciting, not weird. She asked a few specific questions, though, like whether my photos were recent and if I had ever been mistaken for someone else. I thought she was joking. I answered anyway. She suggested meeting at a small community art center that stayed open late. Not a gallery exactly, more like a shared space with random exhibits and old couches. I liked that place. It felt neutral. Too many people coming and going for anything strange to happen. I got there early and wandered around pretending to look at a display of old photographs taped to the wall. The lighting was uneven and warm. My phone stayed in my hand longer than usual. Tinder was open even though I didn't remember opening it. Her profile stared back at me like it was checking something. She showed up without much noise, just appeared beside me like she had been standing there already. She looked like her pictures, but there was something about her expression that made me uneasy. Not cold, not intense. Focused, like she was doing a task. We sat on one of the old couches near the back. People drifted around us, talking quietly, laughing, moving between rooms. It felt public enough. I tried to relax. We talked about random stuff. Nothing personal at first. She listened carefully, nodding, occasionally glancing at my face longer than necessary. After a bit, she asked to verify my identity. Not in a playful way. Not like asking for social media. She explained it like a normal step, like everyone did this now. I laughed awkwardly, assuming she meant showing my profile again. She shook her head and reached into her bag. She pulled out a folded piece of paper. When she opened it, my stomach dropped. It was a printed photo of me. Not a screenshot from Tinder. Not a blurry image. A clear photo printed on regular paper, slightly worn at the edges. The lighting was different from anything in my profile. The angle was wrong. I was sitting somewhere unfamiliar, looking slightly off to the side. My hair was shorter. My face looked the same, but not exactly. Like a version of me from a different point that I couldn't place. Written at the top in neat handwriting were two words. Previous version. My mouth went dry. I stared at the photo, trying to understand what I was looking at. She held it up next to my face, comparing carefully. Her eyes moved back and forth between me and the paper like she was checking alignment. I asked where she got that. My voice sounded far away to me. She said something about needing to make sure nothing had drifted too far. She said the app liked consistency. She said sometimes people changed more than expected. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down. Tinder was open. A banner sat at the top of the screen. Identity verification in progress. I hadn't tapped anything. I hadn't agreed to anything. The app lied slightly, then my screen switched to my profile. My photos loaded one by one. I noticed something wrong immediately. One of them wasn't mine. It was the photo she was holding. The printed one. Same lighting, same angle, same expression. The timestamp under it said updated recently. My heart started racing. I scrolled frantically. My other photos looked normal, but that one sat there like it belonged. I looked up at her again. She nodded slowly, like this was expected. She compared the photo to my face again, adjusting the angle of the paper slightly. She mentioned differences, small ones, things I hadn't noticed, how my hairline had shifted, how my posture was different, how my eyes didn't quite match anymore. My chest felt tight. I shoved my phone into my pocket, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt sitting there. People were still walking around us, laughing, unaware. The room felt distant, like I was behind glass. She explained that sometimes profiles needed updating manually, that automated systems weren't perfect, that previous versions were kept as reference. She said it like she was talking about software, not a person. My phone buzzed again. Verification step 2. I pulled it out despite myself. The app prompted me to adjust my face to match an outline on the screen. Like a face scan. I didn't move. The screen flickered. Match confidence decreasing. She watched the screen over my shoulder, calm and focused. She told me to relax. She said tension affected accuracy. I stood up abruptly, my legs shaking. The couch creaked loudly. A couple people glanced over, annoyed. I didn't care. I told her I was leaving. She didn't stop me. She folded the photo carefully and put it back in her bag. She looked mildly disappointed, like a test hadn't gone as planned. My phone buzzed again as I stepped away. Manual exit detected. Identity unresolved. I walked fast toward the exit, my heart pounding. My phone buzzed nonstop now, each vibration sharp and insistent. Alerts stacked faster than I could read them. Outside, the air felt heavy. Not cold, not warm, just wrong. I leaned against the wall trying to breathe. My phone buzzed again. Verification window closing. I powered my phone off. It turned back on by itself. The screen lit up to Tinder. A new message appeared at the top. Reverting to previous version. I felt dizzy. I locked the phone and shoved it into my pocket, walking without direction. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed distance. When I finally got back to where I live, I locked the door and slid down against it, shaking. My phone was quiet for a moment. I started to think maybe it was over. Then it buzzed again. I opened it slowly. Tinder showed my profile. My photos had changed. The main picture was the printed one. My current selfies were gone. Under my bio was a new line. Version restored. I stared at it for a long time, my mind racing. I tried to edit the photo. The option was gone. I tried to change my bio. Locked. I tried to log out. The app froze. I deleted Tinder. It came back. I powered my phone off again. It turned itself back on. The next morning, everything looked normal. My profile was back to usual. My photos were mine again. No weird banners. No alerts. Her profile was gone. No match. No chat history. I almost convinced myself it was stress, imagination, a bad night layered on top of too much scrolling. Then I checked my camera roll. The printed photo was there. Timestamped today. A second one sat next to it. Same angle. Same place. But my face looked slightly different. Under the file name were 2 words. Previous version. I should have paid attention to the way the night felt finished before it was actually over. There's this specific feeling when something is done using you, like when a machine powers down but the room stays warm for a while after. That's how I felt standing outside the place where we met, jacket zipped, phone in my hand, already tired even though nothing technically bad had happened yet. We matched 2 days earlier. His profile was clean and quiet, like it didn't want to stand out. Normal photos, normal bio, nothing that screamed danger or drama. The conversation was fine. Not exciting, not dry. Just enough to make meeting feel reasonable. We agreed on a late evening walk and coffee at a small place near the river, one of those caves that closes late because no one wants to admit the area empties out after dark. The date itself was fine. That's the annoying part. Nothing dramatic. We walked, talked, sat by the water for a bit. He was polite, a little stiff, but not rude. I didn't feel chemistry, but I didn't feel uncomfortable either. I remember thinking it would probably end with a mutual fade, maybe one more message, then nothing. That felt safe. When it was time to leave, I mentioned heading home. Casually. He immediately offered to walk me back. Not pushy, not weird. Framed it as a safety thing. I hesitated, then agreed. I told myself it was late and the streets were empty, and having company wasn't a bad idea. We started walking. The air felt colder than before, quieter. The city noise thinned out quickly as we moved away from the river. Streetlights flickered on and off in that lazy way that makes everything feel slightly unreal. I pulled my phone out once to check the time, then put it away. We walked side by side at first. The conversation slowed naturally. That normal end-of-date quiet. I started planning what I would do when I got back to where I live. Shower, stroll, forget the night. After a few blocks, I took a left turn. It wasn't random. It was just the way I usually go. I've walked that route so many times it's muscle memory. My body moved before my brain thought about it. He stopped. I took a few more steps before noticing. When I turned back, he was standing under a streetlight, looking confused. Not surprised. Confused, like something hadn't matched. He corrected me. Not in a rude way, not angry. More like someone gently fixing a mistake. He pointed out that I usually take the next street over, the one with fewer lights, the one that cuts behind the closed shops. My stomach dropped. I laughed awkwardly and said I switch it up sometimes. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't fully buy it. He started walking again, falling back into step beside me, but the energy had shifted. It felt like I had deviated from a script. I asked how he knew my route. He shrugged and said people are predictable. He said routines show up if you pay attention. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Not threatening. Confident. I pulled my phone out again without thinking. Tinder was open. I hadn't opened it. The chat with him was still there. At the top, a small banner sat under his name. Location alignment paused. I stared at it, my heart starting to race. The app refreshed on its own. The banner changed. Alternate path detected. I locked my phone quickly and shoved it into my pocket. The street suddenly felt too quiet. Our footsteps echoed louder than they should have. I kept walking, sticking to the route I had chosen. I didn't look at him, but I could feel his attention on me. Not staring, tracking, like he was waiting to see if I would correct myself. After another block, I took a right turn. This one led toward a busier road. More lights, more traffic. He slowed again. This time he didn't stop, but he pointed it out immediately. Said this wasn't efficient. Said it added time. Said I usually avoid this street at night because of the noise. That was true. I hadn't told him that. My chest tightened. I told him I didn't mind tonight. That I felt like walking. My voice sounded thin to my own ears. My phone buzzed. I didn't want to check it, but I did. Tinder was open again. The banner was back, brighter now. Route deviation increasing. Under it was a progress bar slowly draining from right to left. I felt trapped. Not physically, mentally. Like the app and the person next to me were both expecting me to fall back into place. He started talking about how the app sometimes shared insights. Not directly. Just comments about how it helped people feel more secure. How it reduced uncertainty. How it worked best when people followed patterns. Every word made my skin crawl. We passed a closed grocery store. The lights inside flickered once, then went dark. The street felt emptier than it should have. My phone buzzed again. Route confidence low. I stopped walking. He stopped too, a few steps ahead. He turned slowly like he had expected it. His expression wasn't annoyed. It was concerned, like I was the one doing something wrong. I told him I was fine walking alone from here. I said my place was close. I said thank you and took a step back. My phone buzzed hard in my pocket like a warning. He glanced down at it instinctively. And that's when I knew this wasn't just him guessing. Tinder opened on my screen again. A full-page alert replaced the chat. A squirt interrupted. I felt dizzy. I backed away another step, then another. He didn't follow. He just stood there watching, his phone in his hand now too. His screen glowed faintly in the dark. I turned and walked fast, then faster. I didn't run, but my legs were shaking. I took another turn, then another, deliberately choosing streets I never use. Every time I turned, my phone buzzed. Unrecognized route. Distance mismatch. Arrival estimate invalid. It felt like the app was losing patience. I ducked into a small alley that cut between two buildings. Trash bins lined the wall. The smell was sharp and sour. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I stopped and leaned against the brick, trying to breathe. My phone buzzed again. This time the message was simple. Escort failed. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't want to find out. I powered my phone off. It turned itself back on. The screen lit up to Tinder. His profile was gone. The chat was gone. In its place was a system notice. Walk completed with deviations. I stared at it, my hands shaking. I deleted the app right there. The icon vanished. My screen returned to normal. I waited a full minute. The icon came back. I didn't check behind me until I reached the end of the alley. When I did, no one was there. The street was empty. Too empty. I walked the rest of the way home fast, checking every corner, every reflection in windows. My phone stayed warm in my hand the entire time, buzzing occasionally like a heartbeat. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and leaned against it, gasping. My phone finally went quiet. The next morning, everything looked normal. Tinder was there. No alerts, no banners, no sign of him anywhere. My route history looked normal. My messages were fine. I almost convinced myself it was just a creepy guy who guessed too much. Until later that night, when I opened Maps to check something. A suggested route popped up. Highlighted. The exact way he expected me to walk. I almost didn't open Tinder that night, and not in a dramatic way. It was more like the app felt tired, like a room you've sat in too long where the air stops moving. My thumb hovered over the icon while I stared at my ceiling, phone glowing in the dark, thinking about how many faces I'd already forgotten. It wasn't loneliness. It was routine. Swipe, match, talk, fade, repeat. I told myself I'd just check it once and sleep. Her profile appeared almost immediately. It wasn't striking. That's what bothers me now. Nothing about it screamed important or intense. Just calm. Neutral photos. Normal lighting. Her bio was short and almost dismissive, like she didn't care if anyone swiped or not. For some reason, that made me stop scrolling. It felt final in a way I couldn't explain, like the app had reached the end of something and was presenting a result. We matched before I'd even locked my phone. Our messages were slow but deliberate. Not flirty, not awkward. Every response felt measured, like it had been weighed before being sent. She asked questions that weren't deep but felt directional. What I was looking for. Whether I believed things happen for reasons. How I felt about endings. I joked a little, tried to keep it light, but she didn't lean into that. She kept the tone steady. She suggested meeting at a small closed-down pier just outside town. Not popular, not scenic, just a stretch of wood and metal that people barely used anymore. I hesitated, then agreed. Something in me wanted to see where this was going, even though another part of me already felt like I shouldn't. The drive there felt longer than it should have. My phone stayed quiet the whole way, which was unusual. No notifications. No buzzing. When I parked, the lot was empty except for one car backed into a corner spot. I told myself that meant privacy, not danger. She was already there, leaning against the railing, looking out at the dark water. She didn't turn when I approached, like she already knew I was there. When she did face me, she looked exactly like her pictures, but there was a stillness to her that made me uneasy. Like she wasn't nervous at all, like this wasn't new to her. We walked along the pier slowly. The boards creaked under our feet. The water below was black and flat, reflecting almost nothing. Conversation came easily at first. Everyday stuff. Things that didn't matter. But I noticed she kept steering it back to Tinder. How it worked. How long I'd been on it. How many matches I'd had. I told her the truth. Too many to count. She nodded like she expected that answer. After a while, she stopped walking and leaned on the railing again. She talked about how she believed Tinder wasn't random. Not in a cute destiny way. More like a system that narrowed things until there was only one outcome left. She said most people thought they were choosing, but really they were being filtered. I laughed uneasy and said that sounded intense. She didn't laugh back. She explained that she had stopped seeing new profiles weeks ago. Not because she wasn't swiping, but because the app stopped showing her anyone new. She said it had decided something. That every match after a certain point was just noise. She said I was different. My phone buzzed softly in my pocket. I pulled it out. Tinder was open. I hadn't opened it. A banner sat at the top of the screen. Final match identified. My heart started racing. I looked up at her, expecting some reaction, but she was just watching me calmly, like this confirmed what she already knew. She said she believed Tinder showed people their last match when the system decided they were done searching. Not in a romantic way, in a completed way. She said it happened when someone fit too well into the patterns the app understood. I asked what she meant by done. She explained that some people kept swiping forever because they never aligned cleanly. Too inconsistent. Too unpredictable. But others narrowed down over time. Routines got clearer. Preferences stabilized. Response patterns locked in. Eventually, there was only one possible outcome left. She said I had been narrowing for a while. My phone buzzed again. The banner updated. Matching disabled. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. I tried to swipe away from her profile. Nothing happened. I tried to go back to the main screen. It froze. Everything except her profile was unresponsive. She leaned closer to the railing, her voice calm, explaining that this didn't mean something bad would happen. Just that there wouldn't be any more matches after this. She said the app didn't like uncertainty at the end of cycles. I stepped back, suddenly aware of how alone the pier was. The lot was still empty. The road beyond it silent. I told her I could just delete the app, that this was ridiculous. She nodded and said people always said that. She said deletion didn't change classification. My phone buzzed again. Status locked. I felt sick. I tried to log out. The option was gone. I tried to open settings. Frozen. Her profile stayed centered on the screen like it was pinned there. She explained that most people didn't notice their final match because it looked normal, like any other date. They assumed the silence afterward was just life. But she noticed. She paid attention. She said she liked to meet people at this stage to see if they felt it too. I asked what happened to the others. She said some accepted it. Some panicked and stopped replying. Some tried to reset their profiles. None of it changed the outcome. The app just marked them complete. My phone buzzed harder this time, vibrating in my hand like a warning. Completion in progress. I backed away from the railing, my heart pounding. I told her I was leaving. I said I didn't want to hear any more of this. She didn't stop me. She didn't follow. She just watched, her expression almost gentle, like she was watching someone finish something they didn't realize they'd started. As I walked toward my car, my phone buzzed nonstop. Alerts stacked on top of each other too fast to read. Profile finalized. Discovery disabled. Archive prepared. I got in my car and locked the doors, breathing hard. My phone buzzed again. Final match confirmed. I started the engine and drove away without looking back. The road felt unreal, like I was driving through a simulation that hadn't fully loaded. My phone stayed warm in my hand the entire time, buzzing occasionally like a pulse. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and sat on the floor, shaking. I deleted Tinder immediately. The icon disappeared. I powered my phone off for good measure. The next morning, my phone turned on by itself. Tinder was back. I opened it with dread. The app loaded instantly. No profiles. No swipes. No messages. Just my profile centered on the screen with a single line underneath. Final match completed. Below it was a date. Last night. I tried to swipe anyway. Nothing happened. I tried to edit my profile. Locked. I tried to log out. Disabled. Tinder still sends notifications sometimes. Not matches. Just reminders. Subtle ones, like asking if I'm satisfied. Asking if the outcome feels accurate. I don't open them anymore. But the app hasn't shown me another person since. And sometimes late at night, I swear I can still see her profile picture for half a second when I unlock my phone, like the system is reminding me it already decided. I knew I was going to leave before I actually stood up. My body decided first, like it always does when something feels wrong, but your brain is still pretending everything is fine. It was that quiet internal shift where the room suddenly feels too small and every sound feels closer than it should. Nothing dramatic had happened yet, but the night had started to feel sticky, like it didn't want to let go. We matched earlier that evening. I hadn't planned on meeting anyone. I was just lying on my bed scrolling because I couldn't sleep and my place felt too quiet. Her profile felt normal in a boring way. Casual photos, nothing intense. nothing trying too hard. The bio was short and kind of vague, but not in a mysterious way. More like she didn't feel the need to explain herself. I swiped without thinking. We matched almost immediately. Our messages were short and easy. She suggested meeting at a late-night mini-golf place that stayed open way later than it should. Neon lights, fake grass, loud colors. I liked places like that because they didn't feel serious. I told myself it would be low pressure and easy to leave if it got awkward. I got there first. The place was mostly empty, just a few groups laughing too loudly near the front. The air smelled like plastic and soda. The lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in this fake glow that made it hard to tell what time it was. I grabbed a club and waited near the first hole, checking my phone more than I needed to. She showed up quietly, like she had been there longer than I realized. She smiled and waved, walking over like we were already mid-conversation. She looked like her pictures, but there was something about her presence that made me uneasy. Not scary, just certain, like she knew how the night was supposed to go. We played a few holes. It was awkward but fine. Missing easy shots, joking about it, nothing weird. But every time I checked my phone, Tinder was open. Not the chat, just the app, sitting there like it was waiting. She talked about random stuff at first, but she kept circling back to timing. How long things lasted. How people knew when something was over. She asked how I usually ended dates. I laughed and said I just kind of knew. She nodded like that answer meant something specific. Halfway through the course, I started feeling that pressure again, the kind that makes your shoulders tense without you noticing. The place felt quieter now, like the noise had faded even though people were still there. I checked my phone again. Tinder had changed. A small banner sat at the top of the screen. Date in progress. I frowned. I had never seen that before. I locked my phone and told myself it was some weird update. Apps do dumb stuff all the time. We finished the hole and stood near the next one. She leaned on her club, watching me closely. Her eyes kept flicking to my face like she was checking for something. I felt exposed in a way I couldn't explain. I decided to leave. Not dramatically. I just said I was tired and needed to head home. My heart was already racing, like it knew something I didn't want to admit yet. I took a step back, reaching for my jacket. My phone buzzed. I froze. I pulled it out slowly, my hands shaking. A Tinder notification filled the screen. This date is not finished. My stomach dropped. I read it again, hoping I had misunderstood. The notification didn't look like a normal message. It was bold, centered, like a system alert. Underneath, it was a smaller line saying leaving early may affect completion. I looked up at her. She was watching my screen, calm and patient. Not surprised, like this was expected. I left nervously and said I was serious about leaving. I stepped back again. My phone buzzed harder this time. Exit attempt detected. The app opened on its own. The chat screen was gone, replaced by a progress bar labeled interaction phase. It was about halfway full. Under it was a timer counting up, not down. She told me something then that made my skin crawl. She said some dates took longer to register. Some needed closure. She said the app didn't like incomplete sessions. I backed away another step. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I could feel people nearby, but they felt far away, like they were part of a different scene. I turned and started walking toward the exit. My phone buzzed again. Movement away from location detected. The progress bar dipped slightly. Date stability reduced. I walked faster. The neon lights blurred as I passed. My phone buzzed with every few steps, like it was counting them. She followed, but not close. She kept a few steps behind me, not rushing, not calling out, just there. When I reached the door, I pushed it open and stepped outside. The night air hit me hard, cold, and sharp. I sucked in a breath, feeling a rush of relief for half a second. Then my phone buzzed again. This date is not finished. The notification reappeared, bigger this time. The screen dimmed around it like nothing else mattered. I unlocked my phone, panic rising. Tinder filled the screen. The progress bar was still there, but now it was flashing slowly. A new option sat underneath it. Return to location. I shook my head, backing away from the door. I could still see her through the glass, standing just inside, watching me calmly. I turned and walked fast toward the parking lot, my heart racing. My phone buzzed nonstop now. Alerts stacked faster than I could read them. Distance increasing. Completion unlikely. Adjusting parameters. I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking. When I got into my car and locked the doors, my phone buzzed again. Final warning. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't want to find out. I started the car and pulled out of the lot, tires squealing slightly on the pavement. As I drove, my phone kept buzzing in the cup holder. Every red light felt like a trap. I didn't look at the screen. I couldn't. When I finally got back to where I live, I ran inside and locked the door, flipping the lock twice. I leaned against it, gasping for air, my heart pounding. My phone buzzed again. I looked. Tinder was open. The progress bar was nearly empty now. Under it was a line of text. Date incomplete. Another line appeared underneath. Resuming required. I deleted the app immediately. The icon vanished. My screen went back to normal. I waited. 10 seconds later, the icon reappeared. My phone buzzed. Date resumed. I slid down the wall, shaking. I powered my phone off. It turned back on by itself. The screen lit up to Tinder. The progress bar filled instantly. A new message appeared. Thank you for continuing. I stared at the screen, my chest tight, my mind racing. I didn't know what continuing meant anymore. I didn't know what it wanted. The next morning, everything looked normal. Tinder was back to its usual boring layout. No progress bar. No alerts. No sign of her profile anywhere. I almost convinced myself it was a nightmare. Until I checked my calendar. Last night was marked as an event. Date in progress. It hasn't ended yet. I didn't realize how easy it is to cooperate until someone thanks you for it. That sounds dumb, but that's the truth. The night didn't feel scary at first. It felt smooth. Too smooth. Like everything was lining up without me having to push at all. That's usually when I mess up, when I stop questioning why things are working. We matched in the afternoon. Her profile had that calm energy that makes you feel like nothing bad could come from it. Soft smile. Casual pictures. A bio that didn't try to sell anything. She didn't joke much in messages, but she responded fast and clearly. No mixed signals. No awkward pauses. It felt easy, which made me let my guard down way too fast. She suggested a small dessert place downtown. Not a restaurant, not a bar. One of those quiet places with dim lights and too many framed photos on the walls. I liked that idea. Dessert felt harmless. Low pressure, something you do when you don't want the night to drag on. I got there first and sat at a small table near the window. The place smelled like sugar and coffee. Soft music played quietly in the background. My phone sat on the table face up. Tinder was open, but I didn't remember opening it. Her profile sat there, unchanged. She arrived right on time. Not early, not late. She smiled when she saw me and walked straight over like she already knew exactly where I was sitting. She looked like her pictures, but something about her felt more alert in person. Not nervous. Alert. We ordered dessert and sat there talking. The conversation flowed easily. Too easily. Every time I said something, she responded in a way that felt perfectly matched. Not just polite, but aligned, like she had already anticipated the answer. I noticed small things. How she mirrored my posture without realizing it. How she nodded at specific moments, not randomly. How she never checked her phone unless I did first. It felt like a rhythm was forming, and I was being gently pulled into it. The dessert came. We ate slowly. The place was quiet. A couple at another table laughed softly. Everything felt normal. Safe. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting nothing important. Tinder was open again. A small banner appeared at the top of the screen. Interaction compliance high. I frowned. I had never seen anything like that before. I refreshed the app. The banner stayed. Under it was a thin progress bar, nearly full. I locked my phone and slid it closer to me, suddenly uncomfortable. She noticed immediately. Her eyes flicked to the phone, then back to my face. She smiled like she had seen that reaction before. She asked how I felt the date was going. I said fine. Good even. It was true. That made it worse. She nodded slowly, satisfied. My phone buzzed again. I checked it despite myself. The banner changed. Compliance increasing. My stomach tightened. I scrolled. The chat with her was still there, but something new sat underneath it. A small label next to her name. Active evaluation. I looked up at her, my heart starting to race. She watched me carefully, like she was waiting for me to notice something specific. She didn't look threatening. She looked pleased. We finished dessert. I pushed the plate away, suddenly not hungry anymore. She did the same at the exact same moment. That sense movement made my skin crawl. She thanked me for coming out. Her tone was warm, almost grateful. Then she picked up her phone. Mine buzzed immediately. I watched the chat disappear from my screen. Not slowly. Instantly. Her name vanished. The conversation cleared. A gray message replaced it for half a second, then vanished too. She had unmatched me. I stared at my phone confused. I looked up at her. She smiled. She thanked me for being the most cooperative so far. The words hit me harder than anything else that night. Not because they were threatening, but because they were calm. Casual, like a genuine compliment. My chest tightened. I asked what she meant. My voice sounded thin to my own ears. She didn't explain directly. She talked around it, about how some people fought the flow, how others resisted small prompts, how it slowed things down. She said cooperation made everything cleaner. My phone buzzed again. A Tinder notification appeared even though we weren't matched anymore. Evaluation complete. I stared at it, my hands shaking. I tapped it. Tinder opened to a blank screen. No profiles, no swipes, just text. Thank you for participating. Below it was a short list. Arrival on time. Engagement maintained. No resistance detected. Exit without conflict. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket. The cafe suddenly felt too quiet, like the sound had been turned down. She stood up smoothly, grabbing her bag. She said she had everything she needed. She looked genuinely happy, like her night had gone well. I stood up too, legs shaky. I told her I was leaving. She nodded and stepped aside to let me pass, like this was already decided. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. The streetlights buzzed softly. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe, my hands trembling. My phone buzzed again. Post-date status updated. I opened it slowly. Tinder showed my profile. Something was different. Under my bio was a new section. Behavior summary. It listed things in neutral language. Punctual. Agreeable. Adaptable. Low friction. It felt like reading a report about myself written by someone else. I scrolled down. Recommended for future evaluations. My stomach dropped. I tried to edit my profile. The option was grayed out. I tried to delete it. The button didn't respond. I walked home faster than I should have, checking behind me constantly. My phone buzzed occasionally, but I didn't look anymore. I just wanted to get back to where I live. When I got inside, I locked the door and slid down against it, breathing hard. My phone buzzed again. Final note recorded. I opened it despite myself. Tinder showed one last message. Subject demonstrated high cooperation. Suitable baseline. I stared at the screen for a long time, my mind racing. Suitable for what? Baseline for what? The app didn't explain. I deleted Tinder immediately. The icon vanished. My screen went quiet. I waited. 30 seconds later, the icon came back. The next morning, everything looked normal. Tinder was back to usual. No banners. No summaries. My profile looked unchanged. No sign of her anywhere. I almost convinced myself it was just a weird date and my brain filling in gaps. Until later that night, when I got a notification. Tinder, new match available. I opened it. The profile loaded instantly. The bio was short. Looking for cooperative types. Under it was a small line. Baseline comparison enabled. I closed the app and set my phone face down. It buzzed once more. Match queued. I didn't open it. I didn't even feel nervous walking into it, which is what still bothers me. Usually my gut does a little warning tap when something is off. This time it was quiet. Blank, like my instincts had gone offline for the night. I remember thinking how tired I was of second-guessing everything. How nice it would be if something just worked without me having to analyze it to death. That thought aged badly. We matched late the night before. His profile was normal enough that I almost forgot it right after swiping. Decent pictures, clean background, nothing dramatic. The bio was short and kind of generic, but in a safe way. Our messages were calm and steady. No rush, no pressure. He suggested meeting at a quiet diner that stayed open late, one of those places that feels frozen in time. Vinyl boots, buzzing lights, menus that never change. I said yes without thinking too hard. When I got there, the diner was half empty. A few people scattered around, a waitress wiping down the counter slowly. I slid into a booth near the window and put my phone on the table. Tinder was closed, or at least I thought it was. The screen stayed warm in my hand longer than it should have. He arrived a few minutes later and sat across from me like he had already measured the space. Same face as his pictures. Same posture. Nothing obviously wrong. We ordered food and started talking. Small stuff at first. School, work, random stories that don't matter. He listened closely, maybe a little too closely, like he was filing things away instead of reacting. Everything felt normal for a while. Boring even. I remember thinking this might actually be forgettable, which felt like a relief. Then he pulled out his phone. Not abruptly. Calmly. Like it was part of the date. He unlocked it and turned the screen toward me without saying anything first. It was a screenshot of a Tinder chat. My name was at the top. The messages underneath made my stomach drop. It was an argument. Not a dramatic one. The kind that creeps up slowly. Misunderstandings, frustration, tone shifting line by line. And the scariest part was that the messages from me sounded exactly like something I would say. Not close. Exact. Same phrasing. Same mad habits. Even the way I tend to over-explain when I feel cornered. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. The timestamp said it was from the future, a few days from now. He scrolled. There were more screenshots. Another argument further down the line. Longer this time. Colder. The kind where things stop being about the original issue and turn into pattern blaming. I recognized every sentence. Every pause. Even the parts I hate about how I communicate were there, preserved like evidence. My hands started shaking. I asked where he got those. My voice sounded far away to me. He said Tinder generated them. He explained it calmly, like he was talking about a new feature. He said the app predicted conversational trajectories based on response patterns, emotional markers, timing habits. He said it wasn't perfect, but it got better with more data. He said it usually only showed summaries, but sometimes you could see full threads if the match was strong enough. My phone buzzed on the table. I looked down. Tinder was open. A banner sat at the top of the screen. Conflict preview available. I felt dizzy. I hadn't tapped anything. I scrolled despite myself. A section I had never seen before loaded underneath our chat. Projected interactions. I tapped it. The same screenshots he had just shown me filled my screen. My chest tightened. I looked back up at him. He was watching my reaction carefully, not smiling, not apologetic. Curious. Like he wanted to see how I would handle knowing. He scrolled to one specific screenshot and pointed to a message from me. One I hadn't sent yet. He asked if I wanted to change my response. Not sarcastic. Not teasing. Genuinely offering. I felt sick. I asked what he meant by change it. He said the app allowed minor adjustments if both people agreed early enough. Tone softening. Phrasing tweaks. Alternative paths. He said it reduced fallout later. He said most people didn't like seeing it, but he preferred transparency. My phone buzzed again. Edit window open. A countdown timer appeared at the top of my screen. 10 minutes. I stared at the message it wanted me to edit. It was a response where I got defensive, where I misunderstood something small and made it bigger. Something I had done before, too many times. Below it were suggestive alternatives. Softer wording, shorter replies, less emotion. My throat felt tight. I realized the diner had gone quiet around us. The hum of the lights sounded louder. The smell of grease made my stomach turn. I told him I didn't want to do this. I said I didn't want to see the future. I didn't want to plan arguments like calendar events. He nodded like he understood, but his eyes flicked to the timer. My phone buzzed again. Edit pending. The timer dropped to 8 minutes. I shoved my phone face down on the table, my hands trembling. I told him I was leaving. My heart was racing now, every instinct finally screaming at me to get out. He didn't stop me. He didn't raise his voice. He just said something about how the unedited version would probably stick then. He said Tinder didn't like indecision. I stood up, my legs shaky, and grabbed my jacket. The booth squeaked loudly as I slid out. The waitress glanced over annoyed. I didn't care. As I walked toward the door, my phone buzzed again, then again. I didn't look until I was outside. The night air felt too cold, too sharp. I leaned against the wall and unlocked my phone. The timer was still there. 6 minutes. Under it, a new line appeared. Default response selected if no action taken. I felt trapped, like something had already started rolling forward without me. I powered my phone off. It turned back on by itself. The screen lit up to Tinder. The screenshots were still there. The highlighted message blinked slowly. I started walking fast and faster, heading nowhere in particular. Every few steps, my phone buzzed. Edit window closing soon. When the timer hit 0, my phone vibrated hard and the screen changed. Edit window closed. A confirmation appeared. Response locked. I stopped walking, my heart pounding. Another banner slid down. Future interaction updated. I felt sick. I didn't even know what had been locked. I didn't know what I had supposedly agreed to by not choosing. I walked home in a daze, barely noticing the streets. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door and slid down against it, breathing hard. My phone buzzed one last time. Projections saved. The next morning, Tinder looked normal. No projections, no screenshots, no weird sections. His profile was gone. No match, no chat history, nothing. I almost convinced myself it had been stress, imagination, my brain spiraling. Until 3 days later. My phone buzzed while I was sitting alone. A Tinder notification. New message received. The sender was someone I didn't recognize. The message preview stopped my heart. It was the exact response from the screenshot. Word for word. The night felt like it was running late even before it started, like something was supposed to happen already and didn't. I remember checking the time way too often, not because I was excited, but because my brain kept telling me I was out of sync. That's the only way I can explain it. Out of sync with whatever this date was meant to be. We matched the day before. Her profile didn't jump out, but it didn't blur either. Just steady. Normal pictures, no filters that screamed effort. The bio was short and oddly confident, like she didn't need to sell herself because the app would do it for her. Our messages were fine. Not flirty, not cold. She replied like she expected me to answer a certain way and was satisfied when I did. She suggested meeting at a rooftop snack place above a parking structure downtown. Not fancy, just picnic tables, string lights, food trucks rotating in and out. I liked that it felt open. Nothing boxed in. I figured worst case, I could just leave and disappear into the street. I got there early and leaned on the railing, watching cars loop below like toys. My phone stayed in my hand. Tinder was open even though I didn't remember opening it. Her chat sat at the top, quiet, waiting. She arrived without rushing, walking straight toward me like she already knew where I was standing. She looked like her pictures, but there was this faint tiredness in her face, like she had already been disappointed earlier that day. We grabbed food and sat at one of the tables. The wind was light, the city noise low but constant. Everything felt normal enough that I started to relax. We talked about random stuff. Places we liked. Routines. She kept circling back to Tinder, though, asking how long I'd been on it, how often I matched, whether I ever noticed patterns. I shrugged it off, joked about everyone looking the same after a while. She smiled, but didn't reach her eyes. About halfway through eating, she paused and looked at her phone. Her expression shifted slightly. Not alarmed. More like confused. She said something that made my stomach tighten. She mentioned that the app usually suggested replacements by now. She said like she was talking about a late delivery, not people. She scrolled her screen a bit, frowning. She said it was strange that it hadn't. I laughed awkwardly and asked what she meant. She explained calmly that most dates like this triggered follow-ups. New profiles sliding in. Alternatives lining up in the background. She said Tinder liked continuity. She said it hated gaps. She looked back at her phone, then at me, clearly disappointed. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up slowly. Tinder was open. A banner sat at the top. Replacement queue pending. I stared at it, my heart starting to race. I refreshed the app. Nothing changed. No new profiles. No swipe deck. Just our chat, frozen. I looked up at her. She watched my screen like she was checking for the same thing. She said it was unusual. She said usually by this point the app had already started easing people out. She said it helped prevent lingering. The word linger made my skin crawl. I asked what happened if there was no replacement. She hesitated before answering, like she didn't want to say the wrong thing. She said the app sometimes extended sessions when outcomes were unclear. She said that didn't happen often. My phone buzzed again. Session extension active. I felt dizzy. The city lights blurred slightly as I stared at the screen. I locked my phone and shoved it into my pocket, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt sitting there. The conversation after that felt wrong. Not tense, just hollow. Like we were filling time that wasn't supposed to exist. She kept checking her phone, her disappointment growing more obvious each time nothing changed. She mentioned past dates casually. How most of them faded naturally once replacements appeared. How the app smoothed things over by keeping people moving. She said this one felt stalled. My phone buzzed again. Continuation required. I told her I was probably going to head out soon. My chest felt tight, instinct screaming at me to leave while I could. She looked up sharply at that. She said leaving early usually triggered replacements faster. She said maybe that would fix it. I stood up slowly, grabbing my jacket. The wind felt colder now, sharper. I took a step away from the table. My phone buzzed hard. Exit logged. No replacement available. I froze. She stood up too, her expression shifting from disappointment to concern. She said this wasn't how it usually went. She said there was always someone else by now. The rooftop suddenly felt too high, too exposed. The noise below felt distant, like it was happening somewhere else. My phone buzzed again. Gap detected. Session maintained. I backed away, my heart pounding. I told her I really had to go. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked for the stairs. Each step down made my phone buzz. Replacement search ongoing. 0 results. I reached the bottom and pushed through the door into the street. The air hit me hard. I leaned against the wall, breathing fast, my hands shaking as I pulled my phone out. Tinder had changed. The swipe deck was gone. Instead, there was a single screen. Current match retained. Below it was a line that made my stomach drop. No suitable replacement identified. I started walking fast, not caring where I was going. My phone buzzed again. Extended pairing active. I tried to delete the app. The button didn't respond. I tried to log out. Frozen. I powered my phone off. It turned itself back on. The sing screen waited for me. I finally got back to where I lived and locked the door, flipping the lock twice. I slid down against it, breathing hard. My phone buzzed again. Maintenance mode enabled. The next morning, everything looked normal. Tinder loaded like usual. Swipe deck back. New faces. No banners. No warnings. Her profile was gone. I almost convinced myself it was nothing. A weird date. A strange conversation. My brain filling in blanks. Then I noticed something small. Every profile I swiped on felt wrong. Not bad. Empty, like placeholders. After a few swipes, my phone buzzed. Tinder notification. Searching for replacement. Under it, smaller text. Please wait. I closed the app and set my phone face down. It buzzed once more. No replacement found. I thought blocking him would be the clean part, the satisfying part, the moment where I finally felt in control again. I even remember the exact feeling when I tapped the button, that small rush of relief like closing a door you should have closed earlier. I didn't hesitate. I didn't second guess. I blocked him, deleted Tinder right after, and sat there staring at my phone like I had just escaped something. The night before that felt wrong in a slow, quiet way. Not scary at first, just off rhythm. Like a conversation kept landing half a beat too early or too late. We had matched in the afternoon. His profile was plain, almost forgettable. Normal photos, neutral bio, nothing dramatic. Our messages were fine, but there was something about how fast he adjusted to whatever I said that made me uneasy. If I joked, he joked. If I stayed dry, he stayed dry. It felt less like chemistry and more like calibration. We met at a small all-night diner near a bus station. Bright lights, sticky floors. Too much noise to think straight. I picked it because it felt public and busy. Hard for anything strange to happen. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a booth like he had been waiting longer than planned. He stood up immediately when he saw me, smiling like he already knew how this would go. The date itself wasn't terrible. That's what makes it worse. We talked, ate, laughed a little. But I noticed how often he glanced at my phone when it lit up. Not in a jealous way. More like he was checking whether something had updated. Every time I shifted in my seat or checked the time, his eyes followed. Halfway through, my phone buzzed, and I instinctively turned it face down. He noticed immediately. Asked if everything was okay. His tone was calm, but his attention sharpened. I told him it was nothing. After dessert, I felt that pressure in my chest again. The one that tells me I should leave before I can explain why. I made an excuse about being tired and stood up. He didn't argue, but something in his expression flickered. Not anger, disappointment. Outside, the air felt cold and unreal. I checked my phone while walking away. There was a Tinder message from him that I hadn't noticed during the date. Not flirty, not casual. It asked if I was where I was supposed to be. That's why I blocked him. No warning, no explanation. I didn't want to open that door even a crack. I blocked the profile, deleted Tinder immediately, and kept walking. My heart was racing, but I felt lighter, like I had cut the wire before it tightened. When I got back to where I live, I locked the door, tossed my phone on the bed, and told myself it was over. I'd even laughed a little, embarrassed at how tense I had been. It was just a weird guy. That happens. I showered, changed, tried to distract myself. When I came back into my room, my phone screen was lit up. A push notification. From Tinder. That shouldn't have been possible. The app was deleted. Gone. I hadn't reinstalled it. My hands went cold as I picked up the phone. The notification didn't have an icon. No logo. Just text on a blank background. Match confirmed. Location locked. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I tapped it without thinking. Nothing opened. Just my home screen. No app, no message, no trace. I checked my notifications. Gone, like it had never existed. I tried to tell myself it was a delayed notification, a glitch, something explainable, but my phone felt wrong in my hand, warmer than it should have been. I checked my settings. Tinder wasn't listed anywhere, not installed, not hidden, nothing. I sat on my bed for a long time, staring at the wall, trying to calm down. Eventually, exhaustion won. I fell asleep with my phone face down beside me. I woke up to the sound of buzzing. Not an alarm, not a message, just a single long vibration. I grabbed my phone, heart pounding. Another notification. Same blank background. Match active. Below it, smaller text. Do not relocate. I jumped out of bed, adrenaline rushing through me. I checked every app, every setting. Nothing. No source. No record. I turned off location services entirely. A toggle slid off. My phone buzzed immediately. Location confirmed. My chest tightened. I tried again. Turned the phone off completely. It turned itself back on. The screen lit up before I even touched it. No apps. No wallpaper. Just text. Location locked. I felt sick. I backed away like the phone might bite me. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had shifted closer. I grabbed my jacket and keys, my brain screaming that I needed to get out. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, my phone buzzed again. Movement detected. I froze. Another buzz. Return advised. I didn't wait. I ran down the stairs and out into the street. The night air hit me hard, sharp and cold. I started walking fast, not caring where I was going. My phone buzzed with every few steps, lighting up my pocket. Distance increasing. Signal unstable. I stopped, breath ragged, heart pounding. People passed by, completely unaware. I wanted to scream at them, to ask if they saw anything wrong, but I knew how that would look. I ducked into a convenience store and leaned against the fridge section, trying to breathe. My phone buzzed again. Inside the store, the lights flickered. Location deviation logged. The screen on my phone lit up in my hand. No apps, no menus, just text again. Match confirmed. Location correction pending. I felt trapped, like the phone wasn't just tracking me, but expecting me to comply. I powered it off again. It turned back on. Same screen. The cashier glanced at me annoyed. I realized I was shaking. I shoved the phone into my bag and walked out, forcing myself to act normal. I walked for over an hour, looping through streets, cutting through areas I never go. The buzzing never stopped. Sometimes it paused for a few seconds, like it was thinking, and started again. Eventually exhausted, I made my way back to where I live. I didn't know what else to do. As soon as I crossed the threshold, the buzzing stopped. My phone stayed silent. I stood there breathing hard, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. The next morning, my phone looked normal. Apps worked. Notifications made sense. No blank screens. No buzzing. Tinder was still deleted. My location settings were off. I almost convinced myself it had been panic, stress, my brain filling in blanks. Until later that afternoon when my phone buzzed once more. A notification slid onto the screen. From a blank source. Arrival confirmed. I didn't move. I'm still here. The phone hasn't buzzed again. But sometimes late at night, the screen lights up on its own for half a second, like it's checking.